For those of you who have not been here before, welcome to Ciné Salon. I see a mixture of people, so I think I have to do the little spiel, which is this is something that went on in a basement of the library in Hanover, Howe Library in Hanover, New Hampshire, for like seemingly forever. And it was just a way for us to get together and watch movies. So it was like a glorified living room scenario, and just gave a way for us to do this. And COVID has absolutely turned everything on its head. And somehow or other, we've not only survived, we've sort of prospered in this new world because we've been able to reach outside of the basement room, which a good number of you are not basement people. Hello, Barbara. Hi, Rich. So just to let you know, it's very informal. Coming and going is great. Speaking up is great. One of us, Megan or I, will be trolling to turn people's mics off if that is a problem because of the technical stuff. And it's a train wreck of things, but it always works somehow. So what I was going to do is everybody can say hello, Tosh, quickly. Just hello, Tosh, and thank you for coming.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah,
welcome.
everybody.
Hello, Tosh.
Pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. No, thank you so much is right. Even hello there, you two. Guys, see this, it's all over the country. It's great. So the deal is this: I have a real brief little introduction that we're going to run through me screen sharing, and then we'll come back. So
Okay.
a 9-minute introduction. Let's see if this all works. We'll see you all soon. Tosh, hit your mute button. Michael, et cetera.
I should hit my mute button?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, exactly. Boing. Okay. Hopefully nothing will break, and I'll have to hit my button at some point, but this is a great introduction, I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, my name is Craig Baldwin. I'm a local filmmaker here. I'm associated with Artist Television Access Gallery and other cinema in the Mission. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today, for a very brief amount of time, too brief, I must say, about Wallace Berman. The work of Wallace Berman is my personal hero. Now, you can look at this zine, or this bundle of loose leaf papers, if you can manage to, but you won't be able to see it so well. I'm not really going to concentrate so much in this brief amount of time on a formal fine art analysis of this stuff, except to say that it's not at all modernist or postmodernist. It's very much a West Coast beat expression, a gesture from a lived experience, a new sensibility of artists who are making art in a new way after the war. Probably against the conformity, the numbing conformity of the Eisenhower republicanism. A group of people dropped out. Berman's often called the proto-hippie. He's the one that links the mid-50s writers like Ginsberg and Kerouac with later Leary and Beatles types. And as a matter of fact, speaking of the Beatles, I'd just like to point out that, in fact, Wallace Berman's picture is one of those on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, right next to Tony Curtis. He was such a subcultural...
Point it again.
It's down next to Tony. He's a subcultural influence. His work was a synthesis. The name of the magazine is Semina, which means semen or seed or to sow. As a matter of fact, later he appeared in Easy Rider as the hippie commune guy who was planting seeds in New Mexico. He lived a hard life, an impoverished life. He died at age 50 on the eve of his birthday in a motorcycle accident. On a drunk driver hit him. On that helmet was an Aleph. An Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. On many of these pages, you'll see the Aleph. Again, a lyrical in shape and a Kabbalah-driven code of secret hermetic meaning that would be shared by a tribe of people. That was his contribution, was not so much that he used a small letterpress, and certainly that was a sizable contribution, because in fact it gave birth to the zine movement, and also Xerox art and photocopy art, but rather the circle of friends that he cultivated by planting his seeds. And these little journals themselves, in issues of 200, only did 9 of them in about 6 years, between 56 and 64, would go out and would connect this circle of friends. This was kind of something that was going on the East Coast at the time with the New York Correspondence School of Art, with Ray Johnson, the Fluxus movement, Black Mountain, and all that. These all were proto-pop movements against the commerciality of pop art was this subcultural, like I say, more of a against the grain sense of individualism, nihilism, existential angst you see in the literature and the art of the times. I just want to get to the best story about Berman, having a lot to do with what's going on here in San Francisco, was the fact that he only exhibited one time commercially, and that was in the Ferris Gallery, where famously Andy Warhol, of course, broke through with his famous Brillo paintings, boxes. The same gallery hosted in '57 Berman, and there was his big star at that point, Wallace Berman, was a woman by the name of Cameron, Marjorie Cameron, who was associated with Kenneth Anger, was the star of Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome, a very famous film made by by Anger. And as a matter of fact, he scattered on the floor of an installation at the Ferris Gallery pages from Semina. You understand? In other words, there was art having to do with distribution and diffusion and dissemination, and forming the floor of one of his installations with pages from Semina #1, on which the cover was Marjorie Cameron, and in which contained a picture that she drew on her first peyote trip that she took after listening to Aldous Huxley in the mid-'50s. And she drew this, and it was found by the Los Angeles Police Department. And this picture was called Lewd. And Wallace Berman was convicted of public obscenity. And he said, that's my last art show ever. And where are we now? And he left Los Angeles for San Francisco. He lived up in Larkspur. He beachcombed, lived in a houseboat, and associated with all this, the new assemblage generation. George Herms, for example, Bruce Conner, and many of the people that are, Bruce Conner's right here in this same building right now. So he started and continued that magazine after a while, and sooner or later went back to live in subcultural life in, on the outside, sort of the godfather of Los Angeles, in Topanga Canyon. That's where he had this little disheveled house, and when Andy Warhol came in 1963, as I said, for the Ferris Gallery show, he shot a film in Wallace Berman's backyard. It was called Tarzan and Jane Regained, sort of. The interesting thing about Berman is this, the use of the Hebrew alphabet. He grew up in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles, a Jewish district, son of Russian Jews, but lived in Los Angeles his whole life. Was thrown out of school for gambling, got into jazz. This is all before rock and roll really hit. Total dropout type guy that was busted for pot smoking in '44 and forced to either go to jail or go into the Navy. He did, and after 6 months, blew his mind. The point is that he would not be confined within the Navy or any other institution, which is why he always took this outsider role, and other leading thinkers and creators of the time would come to him. Again, like the Beatles would come and they would meet him when they went to Los Angeles. His wife is pictured here in some of these shots, also on a cover of the Semina. Here's a photo of him, self-portrait. Here's Larry Jordan's wife in bare-chested with a wrestling mask on. Here's Charlie Bird Parker, the jazz musician. There's writings here of Cocteau, Artaud, Bukowski, Burroughs, Ginsberg, pictures of Nijinsky. Here's his son Tosh, who's still alive, by the way, and publishing on the net, believe it or not. This kind of secret poetry is what I want to end with, this idea of the influence of the Jewish Kabbalah and this idea of a secret shared code. One of these, many of the sort of poems in there would just be numbers, as you see right here, when the numbers actually stood for words. So the idea of a transcendental spiritual release from the numbing conformity of the automobile of the 50s, and this move to the canyons, which later became the massive counterculture known as the hippie generation. So thanks very much.
What we're going to do is go to this 1 second piece here, if you could. It's silent. That's our little introduction to Mr. Tosh Berman and his father, Wallace Berman.
Nice introduction. Thank you.
There you go. Sorry that it blows up. You know, it's funny that when one's computer gets so old, it's like us, it falls apart. It doesn't want to function.
You're not speaking about me. You're speaking for yourself, I presume.
Yeah, no, I'm speaking for my computer.
Oh, okay, cool.
Well, welcome, Tosh.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. You've written this phenomenal. Well, you've done this. You know, it's funny. The Ciné Salons this year have all been going back into the past with people who take care of their past.
Oh.
And it's been pretty, and it's been huge undertakings, not just one or two films or something,
Right.
but 20, 30 years of work. And so when I realized this about you the other day, it was just by serendipitous sort of that, you know, that I didn't realize how incredible the work you've done to keep your father's life and work alive.
Wow.
And the second part of this is your book, which I just finally saw the other day, last week or so. Megan picked it up for the library here.
Thank you, Megan.
I was yes, she's a wonder, Megan. As I was reading in pieces, and it was becoming heavier and heavier as it went, but it was also dragging me into it more and more.
Yes.
And what I came back with is, and I'll shut up after this, is it's like Charles Bukowski's Post Office, but a much more interesting group of people and time period, and also a really positive reaction to these really intense life events.
Well, it's tricky to write about one's past, especially your childhood. I wrote the book because people were consistently asking me questions about my father and what he was like, and that's the book.
Totally books.
And so about, I don't know, like 13 years ago or so, I started writing the book, and it took me about off and on, 12 or 13 years to put it together, to write it. And it's very interesting to go back to your childhood. For me, my childhood was such a strong presence in my present life. I never could really leave my childhood. And due to who my father is, due to my father's passing, it sort of, when my father died, it sort of ended a chapter. It just sort of stopped. So the second part of my life is really reacting to the first part of my life, in a sense. And and also there's been books about my father, not about my father totally, but about the beat scene, or about life in San Francisco and life in Los Angeles. Perfectly fine books, but I never felt they captured the essence of my dad and who he was at the time, and his reputation of sorts. And he became sort of legendary. For instance, just listening to the wonderful introduction, there's like the presumption that my dad knew the Beatles, which makes perfect sense because he's on the cover of Sgt. Pepper. Therefore, you must know the Beatles. That is not the case. My father never met the Beatles. It's more interesting.
That's a perfect segue for a couple slides I'd like to show people to move it down the field. But let me interject one more thing here that I've come to this brand new in many respects. Like, his work was in the background. We'll talk about the film later. The film's always been in the background since the day it surfaced when Brackage took care of it. So that's my main entry to your father. But seeing all this stuff now, and as I was saying earlier, seeing what you've done with the help of various other people and things.
Lots of people help. Yes.
Right, but it's really you underneath it, keeping this alive, keeping him alive.
As a family member and the only child, the only son, yes, but I have, it would be wrong for me to take credit for all that, because, various people have helped along the way, curators, writers, it's not a solo work by any means.
We all get by with a little help from our friends.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Bad quote. But the other thing that threw me totally, and what I was going with this, was that we're about the same age, but my upbringing in life is diametrically 180 degrees from what you were brought up under.
No way, really?
Yeah. And the fact that you have a level-headed approach to the whole thing, at least that
Really?
it's come off as this great bit of work and this book.
So in the morning, when you first wake up in the morning, you didn't have milk and pot? You didn't
Right,
like
exactly,
didn't stuff like that?
exactly.
I
I was,
thought everybody did that.
if anything,
Wow.
I was busy hiding the pot. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, you're hiding the pot.
Like,
Okay.
where will my mom not find the hash? I mean,
I don't know, it's just full of like naked people when I was a child, and pot smoking, and
right. So yeah. We'll get into this later. See.
Okay.
So here's the tie-in with that.
Mhm.
I knew we were going to get there right away. So let me go through a couple things here. I have to do the screen share thing again. I hope it doesn't blow up.
Okay.
God, it keeps
Boom.
going back to the same thing there. There we go. Okay, so you should be seeing my desktop, right?
I think I am, yes.
And I want to see some pictures of people. So let me find the video panels. There we go. Okay.
Mhm.
So how I came to this was sort of like this.
Ah,
It's a
okay.
great picture.
It is a great picture.
It's a great picture just on the surface, and it's a
Mhm.
great picture if you start knowing who the people are.
Yes. Do you want me to identify them, or do you
Well, let's see what
wanna
happens
guess?
with where we go right now, because we're going to
Okay.
come back to people and identifying them. But for the moment, it was the idea of these great people doing fun things, or so it seems.
Yes.
And where that led was literally to what you just said.
Yes.
Who is Wallace Berman? And this is probably the way that everybody in the world knows Wallace Berman.
Um, yes or no? I think a lot of people think, wow, a lot of faces on that record. Wow, the Beatles. Okay, it's the Beatles record, and they probably don't think beyond that sometimes.
Well, they don't
But
need
true.
to, because there's a great
Yeah.
history because of the Beatles. History's everywhere. And here's production stills of
Yes.
making the shot.
Beautiful photograph right now, Alf. I love this photograph.
Yeah, and it's all the people that were involved
Uh-huh.
with making it.
Yes.
And there he is, hidden.
That is him.
Yeah, he's hidden there.
There
And
you
here
go.
they are getting ready to even get that far, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a real live human too that they're dealing with there on the side. But there's your father on the floor.
Yes.
Okay. There's another picture, closely taken. But what's interesting in this picture is
Mhm.
Tony Curtis is somewhere else, as
Yeah.
opposed to in the final picture. So they obviously worked on this to get it where they wanted it.
Yeah. The person by that picture, sitting down looking at the photographs, this person right here is Michael Cooper. And Michael Cooper took the photograph of the Sgt. Pepper cover.
Oh, he actually pressed the button.
He pressed the button, took the photograph. Yes.
Cool. Now you said your father didn't meet the Beatles, but according to your
Mhm.
book, you did, through the largesse of Jerome Hill and Jonas Mekas, you did get to go to London to
Yes.
meet various people and things close
Yeah.
to this
Yeah.
time period, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Yeah. A few. We were there like in July. It was 1967, the Summer of Love.
so
And
it's
this
right after.
album came out in June 1st, 1967. So I think we were in London either in late June or early July.
Wow. Okay, so the room was still hot, so to speak, which is
It
a
was,
great shot because you see the room here.
the room was hot. No, that city was hot. There's no doubt about it.
Well, that's London.
It was a hot time.
London
Great
is
time.
hot.
Mhm.
I just think these pictures are great they have, because you see the different things that are going on, and then we have the final picture, right?
Yeah, what's so great for me, speaking about that cover, is that it really is such a interesting group of people in one photograph. It's kind of amazing that you have my dad by W.C. Fields, Stockhausen, Lenny Bruce, Lawrence of Arabia,
It's
Penny
it's
Lipman.
it,
It's like a great mixture of people in one room. It's fantastic.
and it's still mystifying today. It's not like just of its time. It's like, wow, this is a who's who of something or other.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
which is interesting. That's one of the reasons I like this picture. It's not a great resolution, but some of the people even that are in the picture get cut off. Like the guy on the left, the boxer guy, and the guy above him, the white guy on the second row down. He's kind of gone by the time you get to the cover. You see what I mean?
Actually, I think this cover is cut more. You could actually see.
You can.
Yeah, if you have the actual album cover in front of you, you could see them. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we won't belabor that point. But
Mhm.
this leads back to your dad and you. These two
Yeah.
pictures are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just when I was putting the PR thing together the other day, I saw this. I went, "Holy crap! That's what? How much better can it be?" You know.
It led me to a life of crime to this day. So yes.
Well, we should maybe let people read the book to find out what's going on in your picture, as opposed to letting them all the trade secrets out.
Okay. Yes.
Does that make sense somehow?
Sure. If anybody has a question, I will answer the question as honest as possible.
Yes, and please do speak up if you like, because one of the things about Ciné Salon is we ramble and digress all over the place, which is 9/10 of the fun if you hang in there. So, but please do speak up. So, what I like to do is, if you like, oh, there's Andy Lambert even. Jesus Christ, yeah, that's good. I hope Andy hangs in there so he can tell us some stuff about.
Andy Lambert is a great human being.
Well, he just popped up on screen, so I guess that means he's coming to the party.
I love
Now,
it.
I'm going to turn off the screen share. For those of you who've never been here before, never done this, turn on your chat window, which is the bottom of the screen, and punch the button if you don't know. And we're going to go to a thing to watch some movies for a half hour to actually set the whole mood up further as we've been going. It's kind of a mood. There's people and there's moods here. That's kind of what all this is about somehow. And it's unfortunately filtered through me, so I'm sorry for all of you.
You're like the host of Romper Room. Have you heard of Romper Room?
Yes. Grew up in Romper Room.
Me too. And what happens that the host will say, I say, "Oh, Shane, I see you." Oh, hello, you're doing that. And said, "Hello, Shane. Hello, Tosh. I could see."
Isn't it great to say hello? That's why I asked everybody to leave their cameras on, because it's much more fun to see them. So anyway, in your chat room at the bottom, I'm punching in a thing which is called, I call it We Together. It's called Watch Together. And what this is, if you haven't been there, go ahead and punch it, and you'll go there and you'll see a whole bunch of new screens if you have never been there before. But we can watch movies together. So once I jump over, I'm going to punch the button and start the movies. For those of you who've never been to Watch Together again, go ahead and punch it up. I can only control it, I believe, if I said everything right. So you just have to sit and watch, which that's the good news. We see it together. But to make the screen picture bigger, under the square where the movie is, there's a little gear box. Touch the gear box, and a little broken square rectangle should appear, and that will make your image blow to full screen. Okay.
Do I have to do this myself?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Oh.
Go, do it right now while we're talking.
I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah. So Tosh, the fourth flame.
I believe so. Yes, I think he was the fourth flame. Did you see him?
Yeah. Burn a hole right through.
Oh yeah, of course.
Jesus.
Yeah, the fourth flame.
It's just, there's just so much going on there. I think what got me going on this whole thing was the issue of your father liking zoot suits and wearing zoot suits.
He was a zoot suit generation person from the 40s. He was very much into wearing zoot suits and going to the jazz clubs at the time in Los Angeles.
Well, that fired me up, because our last salon was all about the soundies. So we ended in the mid 40s, but still it was, that's where we saw the Dorothy Dandridge film.
Yeah, my father was very much of a citizen of sort of the Black American culture of Los Angeles at that time, especially in the jazz world.
Yeah,
that was his life.
Just absolutely amazing, and then it bleeds over into the film, which is pure jazz.
Yes.
So what I wanted to do now was move into Aleph in a microscopic sort of way, which was the whole way I approached you, was to actually walk through the film.
That sounds so crazy.
Yeah, of course it is, but that's why you were all here.
Are you ready for something like that? Is everybody ready for that?
Well, it's sort of organized chaos here.
Organized chaos. Okay.
Yeah, what we're going to do is do it gingerly, but we might end up seeing the film at least 3 or 4 times before the end of the evening's over.
Oh my God.
I know, but there's a lot going on that we can jump into. So I thought the way to go about it was to go back to that earlier period in the 50s that some of us might have been alive for and not, but the whole beat period, and in particular, I guess focusing first on the Ferris Gallery period. And we'll walk through little pieces, and I have little snippets of things that we can come and go from to maybe make this more entertaining than just watching the film over and over again.
I'll do my best to make everything as entertaining and informative as possible. I don't want to disappoint anybody watching this right now. So
Oh,
I'm
good.
behind you about
You could be a counterbalance for me mucking up the whole thing. This will work just
no fear. I have no fear.
work fine. Okay, great. Well then, with no fear, let's see what we go to next. I think we go to some more pictures. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, not really. We're going to go to something. There's so much great stuff online now, as I was saying earlier. So what we're going to go to is we're going to jump into a friend of your father's, a close friend, I guess, George Herms, the sculptor, performance artist person. I guess one of the still living members of this group. Is he still living?
Yes. Well, him and George, and there's George. Yeah, George.
And George.
Yeah, George.
Well, actually, I think there's a lot more people than that. And that's what that was one of the things that startled me at first, because I thought, oh my, who would still be alive after all that, you know?
Yes.
Oh, so you got pictures on the screen, right? Am I still there? I don't know if this is like that. You were talking about that crazy TV show earlier. This is like when my screen goes to screen share, I don't see you guys anymore. So I get completely lost in whether we're still wait, hold on a second. This is Ferris. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna start and just chime in anytime you want. These are short little snips from the Getty site.
Okay.
These photographs capture the avant-garde spirit of Ferris Gallery, which was started in 1957 by the curator Walter Hopps and the artist Edward Kienholz. In June of that year, the gallery presented a solo show by the artist Wallace Berman. It included 3 assemblages.
Whoops, what did I do?
I don't know.
I don't know. This is a new one. Okay, well, there's always something new going on.
I see a photograph.
Yeah, I know. The sound got lost. There we go.
These photographs capture the avant-garde spirit of Ferris Gallery, which was started in 1957 by the curator Walter Hopps and the artist Edward Kienholz. In June of that year, the gallery presented a solo show by the artist Wallace Berman. It included 3 assemblages, including one featuring a small reproduction of a drawing by Berman's friend, Cameron, that depicted a couple having intercourse. It's the image in the top row in the center. Lynn Kienholz, who later worked at Ferris, explains.
And the rumor is that somebody inside the gallery called the police and reported this pornographic exhibition. Well, the police came and they closed down the exhibition. They arrested Wallace, and instead of going to prison, the actor Dean Stockwell paid $150 to keep him out of jail.
The photograph in the bottom row, second from right, was taken by Charles Britton. It shows Berman being led from the gallery by officers. Britton remembers the moment.
This is the day of Wally's arrest, and the plainclothes detectives are escorting Wally to the police car, and he stops to crank this mobile sculpture in a spirit of lightheartedness. And detectives who'd probably never been in an art gallery before didn't quite understand what kind of a crime and what kind of a criminal they were escorting to the police.
The publicity surrounding the arrest established the gallery as a place where artists could take risks. But afterwards, Berman moved away from LA and didn't show publicly for several years. You can see and hear more about Berman's work at the Cross Currents exhibition, also on display at the Getty Center.
Okay, that was relatively painless. Thank you.
Well, may I criticize something?
Yeah, sure.
That background piano is the wrong sound for that little video. I mean, do we really need that sort of ambient piano noise? I mean,
yeah, you know, there's a lot of things wrong with the Getty, but
no, I would never criticize the Getty. I'm just talking about the piano player. Getty is perfectly fine. I'm not going to mess with the Getty. Don't mess with them. But the piano player, I think.
I got sort of thrown out of there once. I was in the room in one of the print rooms, and looking at Strand big strand prints, palladium prints from 1916.
Uh-huh.
And in my enthusiasm, I pull out of my pocket a strip of nitrate film to show the curators.
Yes.
And when they realized what it was, they literally ran me out of the building.
Well, that could catch on fire, correct?
Yeah.
So that's, in a way, it's sort of like going to a room with a machine gun and showing
Well,
machine
I
guns.
mean, it's how I got there was amazing to begin with, because it was
Yeah,
a
it's amazing.
strip of D.W. Griffith's Orphans of the Storm that I had forgot I'd packed in my suitcase at like 5 a.m. in the morning to fly out to LA, right? So the first thing that happened at the airport is they dragged me aside and kept me for 2 hours, saying, you have this flammable material on you somewhere. The machines told me this.
Yes.
And after 2 hours, and they wouldn't let me talk, they sequestered me, and it was jail time for sure. And then all of a sudden they said, you can go. And so as I'm ready to get on the next plane, I realized, well, what happens if the plane blows up?
That may not work out for you and your family later. So I'm glad you made it okay.
Sorry, it's okay. So the gallery story, obviously, one of the things we're reading your book that was hard for me was keeping track of the time periods because of the jumping around. So that would be helpful tonight, the years of things.
You're asking me the years. Okay, that's good luck on that. We'll do our best.
Okay, well, maybe that's why it wasn't there. But there's such an incredible group of people. That's the whole point of this evening for me. And one of the points is the people that flow in and out of the life of Wallace and Shirley and yourself.
Yes.
It's an unending parade. It's the hits parade.
At the time, it seemed like it was a parade in front of my eyes, back and forth. Yes. I didn't realize how important these people were because I was only 5 years old at the time, or 6. But at the time of the late 50s, especially in Crater Lane, Beverly Glen in Los Angeles, they had a very social life at the time where people will come to my mom's house and my house at all hours of time and day. And it was it was an open house for a lot of people to come by and, check everything out.
Yeah, and in the brief little talks we've had, some of these characters have crossed over both of our lives, which is that totally, again, on the fact that I was brought up in a totally different universe, the fact that I've come back, circled back around to your universe.
We're on the same planet. You can't get out of this planet. We're here together. So
yeah, and it's incredible that we're all here together because
yes,
the wealth and diversity is phenomenal. So on the screen, I guess you're still seeing screen share. There's this person who's key to the story we just saw, and
Cameron.
The scene. Yeah.
Cameron. That's Semina #1. That's my father's journal, or zine, we will call it now. All handmade by him, like editions of 100. And Cameron was the cover person for that particular issue.
Is this the same issue, this photo? Or drawing?
I believe it is, but I'm not totally 100% sure, but I believe it is the same issue. And that's a drawing by Cameron, which caused my father to be arrested at the Paris Gallery.
Which is mind-bending, considering that the one sculptor installation piece there had literal graphic.
Yeah. There's a graphic image of a penis going to a vagina, very close up. And how the police missed that and found this is you can't pay the police enough. I mean, it's pretty much how they missed the obvious and then focus on that is very interesting. But I don't know how that happened.
It's almost like somebody told them to go look for this picture and not the other stuff.
I think they're told they'll find something there, and they probably didn't really care what they're doing because probably it was probably donut eating hour, and they just want to get out of there as quick as possible. So they heard there was some obscene stuff in this gallery. And they probably walked in not knowing what it is, what they're looking for, and and they saw this drawing, so that will do, and that was the case. It's just by chance, really. I think it's all just coincidence and chance that this all happened.
By any chance, and this is a dumb question, but I got lots of them. Have you actually had any interest to actually find either of those guys?
The police?
Yeah.
Well, I got married, and by chance, my father-in-law is one of the cops. I know how strange how that worked out. It was just, how does that work out in this world? But yeah, no, I don't actually. I think those two police officers
Mm-hmm.
are not that interesting. I think they're the vice squad, and I'm sure in that day in their lives, they probably have no memory of if they're still alive. I sort of doubt they're still around. I'm sure it was nothing prominent in their life or any importance to them whatsoever. It was nothing. It was just a job they did, and that was it.
It just hit me because there was a story right before Jonas Mekas died where the person that prosecuted him came around to see what a great individual Jonas was and everything he was doing. And he apologized to Jonas for having him go through the arrest and censorship stuff that they went through. And that's why it just hit me as the perverse. This is another interesting piece by Cameron. I forget the exact year, but it's her daughter, supposedly.
Oh, Crystal.
Yeah. And we're going to see something in a minute where you're going to see another version of this. So do your best to catch it while you can.
Okay, I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
I'm not blinking my eyes. Okay, that's definitely not Crystal.
No, it isn't, but it's another individual that's
It is another individual. That's Jay DePail, a remarkable artist and a good friend of my father. And that's her in front of her painting, The Rose, which is now, I believe, at the Whitney in New York. I think.
Yeah, that's where I found these two pictures.
Yeah. So and my dad took these photographs and in front of her great painting.
And there's several years before the Ferris Gallery show. I think of 56 or so is what I think.
Yeah, good question. Was it? I don't know.
That's what the Whitney thing said.
Never argue with the Getty or the Whitney.
Yeah, amazing.
That's something I know very well to this day. That's my mother, Shirley Berman.
And this is the cover of which magazine?
Semina.
Which turns up in a lot of pictures. And this one is extremely fascinating. We should tell us something about this one.
That's a Semina, and that image is by I believe by Dean Stockwell.
That's what I read. Yeah, it almost looks like him. It's not him, but it looks like him.
It can, yeah. It does look, yeah, like during the time of his movie Contempt. Was that called? Sort of has that look.
Something like that. That early film with the two guys running around that killed the woman or something.
Great movie.
Do you know what's going on here, though? I mean, are you? No.
Well, me? Oh, about the picture image?
Yeah.
I think it's a photo collage. I think it's an image that Dean probably found. I'm sure like a found photography image, and he probably altered some stuff there. Maybe painted the cross on there or the lines. He did something to that photograph, to that work.
Since I haven't seen it before,
and then it was probably rephotographed, and and then it uses the cover. My dad would paste it on the board. So each issue of Semina, as I mentioned, was handmade and pasted by him, usually by Yes Glue, which I remember. I'm not sure if Yes Glue still exists, but I always keep that memory because I love their logo. It looked like a comic strip, Yes, sort of a nice bubbly comic book Yes on their label. And my dad used that glue, and he physically made each issue. Each issue of Semina was probably about 100 copies. 100 copies. And as I mentioned before by other people, but as me as well, each issue of Semina was given out free to friends or people that my dad found interesting. And it was never purchased or sold during his lifetime. It was all given out to friends or people he greatly admired.
He had a great proclivity, it seems, not to be in the selling racket.
He didn't like it. He didn't like the selling racket whatsoever. He is truly one of the authentic presence of an artist as being as pure as possible in the world. And he did not like art economy at all, really. His economy is very much based on the barter system. He preferred to trade works of art for food, for services. That would make him the most happiest. He was not really into currency. He wasn't really into dollars, yen, pounds, euros.
Has it, with the time and distance being, physically away from him, I guess you're not really anything other than that. Have you got any insights into that over time beyond at face value? It seems like what he did give you was face value appreciation of life.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, the Tosh book, because it's my way of sort of rediscovering my father after so many years.
It's
And,
incredible.
and I think, well, that's a strange, what does that mean when he said that? And I had to think about it, and I come to some sort of conclusion. But, the thing about my father, he had a great deal of friends, and I think each person has a different take on him, which is something I may not agree with, or I didn't see. And my dad had the ability to be many to many different people. His relationship with Dean is totally different from obviously with my relationship with my dad, or Russ.
Well, we
His
all do.
family,
That's
yeah.
normal human
But
play.
my father really, he really cultivated a group of friends or people around him, and I always had the feeling that each person had a separate relationship with him of some sort, not as in a total. It's it's interesting. My dad really admired Dean's and Russ's work, and as artists, and of course they were great friends. And this is my father at his first studio that he shared with Bob Alexander, I think called the Stone Brothers. Anyway,
I threw it in because it gives you a size of the magazine, at least the
yeah.
one magazine, which is good to have because its prominence, and when you see it online and stuff, you have no idea of what.
Yeah, that space was basically my dad's studio at the time. This was probably like in '56, I presume. That's my dad was Dean Stockwell at that same location.
Who plays I guess there were a lot of major, I was going to say major characters in his life, major friends in his life. Is that a good summation?
Well, there are both characters and friends, yes, absolutely true. And Dean was a very close friend of my dad and the family.
This is a beautiful picture.
Yeah,
it really shows the difference in their ages, but the bond too.
yes.
Which leads back to why I showed this at the beginning. It's a long-term relationship.
Well, this is on the left is Dean Stockwell. On the right is my father. And then the beautiful woman in front is Tony Basil. And Tony, to me, is a very important figure, a person, and through the whole narrative of that era of the 60s, and to now, actually. She is a choreographer, dancer, actress, singer. She was famous in the song for the early 80s, the song called Mickey, which is a huge mega hit, international hit. But to me, it's her dancing. She's a dancer, and that's her main sort of core interest in life. She was Dean's girlfriend for many, many years, and that's how we met Tony. And Tony had a great connection with the music world at the time. She knew like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and that whole world. She did a lot of dancing in rock and roll movies and surf movies, all those sort of Frankie Avalon beach films. She's using the backup or background dancer, or she choreographed the dancing. She was in some of the Elvis Presley movies.
She choreographed and co-directed the David Byrne piece that we showed earlier.
We just saw, yes, she co-directed and choreographed the David Byrne piece, yeah.
And then a lot of people know her from her relationship, well, hopefully with Elvis, but also on the other side with Bruce Conner.
Bruce Conner, yeah. Here's somebody who was associated with Elvis Presley to Bruce Conner.
And
how insane is that? And my dad, how crazy is that?
Yeah, it just it goes on and on and
on. She was in Easy Rider, it was great. All these photographs I believe are, well, this one's by Charles Britton, and it's my mother.
What do you know what this event is?
No, obviously they're definitely in front of a theater of some sort. It looks like she's taking a ticket and maybe asking my dad for some money. I'm not really sure. It's an interesting gesture.
Popcorn.
Who knows? I think it's something, yes.
Now we're going to show a couple characters that might not pop up, but they're going to pop up in another way in a second.
I don't recognize who this person is offhand.
This is a guy, San Francisco guy that was pretty heavy duty as a filmmaker and scene person in the late 50s, named Don Vigne, I think is how you say his name, Vigne.
Oh, I heard of him.
And that's his wife.
Oh.
Leorna, is how you say that? Loreon.
Lorena, okay.
And she went to take over the little that OTO or whatever it's called, the little castle, the mystical castle for the Aleister Crowley people. She eventually that became her.
She's involved with the OTO?
Yeah, she took over this place, the sacred place. Anybody that knows this, speak up, because I'm very illiterate when it comes to the whole lineage of this.
Yes, okay, I understand.
But it relates back
So,
to Cameron and
mhm.
her business and anger and his
Yes.
business, and so it goes in circles. And the most obscure person, I think, well, there's a lot of obscure people, but and we're going to go there in a second. I'm spacing out on her name. Jane Conger Belson. And I forget her married name. She was a scene person, a filmmaker at the time, 56, 57, 58, 59, and was hanging out, married to Jordan Belson, the filmmaker, poet person. But these are all scene people of that North End side. Okay, so why show those is to go into another movie thing. You ready for another movie thing?
I'm always scared when you say the next thing, and I don't know what it is.
Well, this is good. This is a little film that popped out a couple years back. Let me see if I can get it going here. It's called North Beach. It's like a home movie, but it's been edited. North Beach. It's 1959.
Oh, I think I've seen this.
It's amazing because your dad and mom and Cameron and Cameron's kid and where is it? It was here. I mean,
That's right there, Street Fair, I think that's it.
It's silent. I'm going to leave this out. It's when you see people, it happens fast after these long sections of watching the crowd. But if you notice somebody yell out, I could even stop it and we could roll it back. It's pretty interesting, though. Let me get one more piece here so I'm ready to go afterwards. We have a follow-up piece made at about the same time, which is more of an artwork proper. Somebody found this at the Pacific, and gave it to the Pacific Film Archive. So I'm going to turn off people's pictures, or try to. No, I don't want to try to. Every time I touch the buttons, I screw everything up.
So far, it's working.
Good. It should be silent. There. Okay. So I think the year is 1950. There's Cameron.
That's Cameron.
I wish I knew who this woman was. I don't.
I don't know.
This fellow's a mystery too.
He's a San Francisco citizen.
Yeah. And that's the lady Lorraine. Oh, I can't say her name right. Loren. This guy's well known, but I forget his name. I'm sorry.
Captain Hook?
Something like it's Captain something or other, believe it or not.
It looks like a Captain Hook or something or another.
Yeah, poet.
He made his own publication, I see.
Yes, and he lost his ship, but he does have his.
But oh, wait, stop with it. Weep not my child. Okay.
Wait a minute, where'd it go? Well, I guess I can't stop it. Oh, well.
Okay, well, I speak fast, so.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. It's really interesting to see these sort of like these street scenes that time.
Oh, it's incredible. Look at this. And this is, pre-hate.
Yeah.
Which also had street scenes.
Yeah, looks like a lot of fun.
One of my relatives was part of this whole scene, and it just brings back so many memories, the arts and crafts part of it.
Oh, Do you know who made this film? Or is this like,
This one, that might be the Belson lady there, and if not, she shows up later. Yeah, and that's the filmmaker, the Dion.
okay.
And then that might be a Cameron painting. I don't know, but we're going to see the other one I showed you of Crystal real quick here. See it? Wait, it's going to pan over.
I'm looking at it.
It's blue though in this. See, without the
yeah.
frame. This is a great shot. That's the Dion fellow again. Oh, I can't stop it. Okay, good. And when you least expect it, your father's going to pop in the frame here after a little blackness.
He comes and goes.
Yeah. Now that either this woman or that, this is the Belson woman, I believe, right here.
Uh-huh.
Unknown.
I think that's that's William Margolis, I think.
Seriously?
I believe so.
This fellow.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe he was a poet. He ended up in Los Angeles and Venice. Yeah.
What name did you give?
him.
What name did you say?
Bill Magolis.
Yeah.
Bill
Gotcha.
Magolis or something like that.
Now they say this is Bob Kaufman coming up, but I don't know. Right here.
See. Oh well, I don't know. Sort of looks like him.
To me, he looks thin, but who knows? Whoops, what did I do? Oh, there we go. Okay. This is a wonderful crowd shot.
There's Cameron.
Cameron again. Okay, now here we go.
Okay, here we go. Waiting for the big moment. That's
Yeah.
not him.
Coming.
Not her. There he is. That's him. That's Wallace Berman. There's Cameron.
This is the great Beat San Francisco pan.
Yes. Yeah.
That's Crystal, the child.
Huh.
Your mom.
That's my mother. That's my mother, Shirley.
There he is. He's in the background too, your father.
Yeah, my dad's right there. Yes, the
I wish I
beard.
knew the fellow was on the ground.
He looks familiar to me, but I don't know who it is.
Yeah. Isn't that great? This is just a great little film.
This is like images of what people want San Francisco to be like. This is sort of like the perfect San Francisco image.
And this guy, I think he gives him the finger.
Well, it's the end, so
Right.
it's a good way to end by giving somebody the cameraman the finger. Oh wow!
Get the newsletter. We don't want the newsletter.
No.
Whoops. But what we do want is hopefully, and this is of the same time period, but an artwork, but a good one. A good one, as you'll see. So enjoy this. It's about 4 minutes.
I'd like very much to tell you about jazz and poetry, or mixing spontaneous kind of music with poetry, which naturally would be derived from one's observations on the world as it goes by. I'm very interested in jazz and poetry because I feel that this is a medium through which I can meet, or reach, I should say, the American public, which under normal circumstances is relatively inaccessible to the poet because of his being outside of it, so to speak. But on the other hand, I think if one can grasp the momentary significance of the music and rhythm and sound, and at the same time juxtapose his voice in such a sonorous way as to achieve a final end of rapport with the group to which he is addressing, then I feel this is basically sound and logical. On the other hand, if one wants to take a purely analytical look at the thing, you could see very obviously that poetry and jazz are utterly opposed because, of course, poetry is a thing that is preconceived, jazz being a thing of the moment. However, you could reverse the roles, having the jazz be the preconceived thing and the poetry is the thing of the moment. But on the other hand, either way, you got a divorcing of your spontaneity and your preconception. Therefore, I would recommend attempting some sort of new unification of these elements, perhaps using an entirely different label. On the other hand, if you want to look at it from the point of view of the public, it doesn't make much difference which way you do it, as long as there's some sort of a thing where the people can go and see it all happening. So either way, you can't necessarily count on winning or gaining, or maybe you lose a few dollars, but everyone has a good time. That's all I think is important, because when I get out there and talk to folks, all I want is some sort of feeling that they're having a good time and that there is some sort of relationship between one thing and another, and not just a complete disorganization which gets on the brains. It's a bad thing because people don't know just what's happening. They hear one thing and think another, and there's no relationship. So I would say one way or the other, you got to do it so that the public has a good time and the money doesn't count. Unless, of course, there's some sort of possibility of subsidization through a grant or something like that. A lot of guys get these Ford grants. Well, that's something else again. But either way, try to get some sort of relationship between one thing and the way it sounds or the way you're doing it. And if people don't understand, they'll come, and maybe they'll even pay, and it'll work out all right, and you won't have to worry about a job because you could just do that and make your living that way. Unless, of course, you're more serious about working in some sort of a professional capacity where you have respect and the interest of the public at hand. Well, that's something quite different then, in which case I'd say don't bother with a jazz nor with a poetry because the two don't mix.
There, sorry about that.
Hi.
What button's the right button? Button.
Push the button.
These documents of the time are just amazing. I mean,
what is the last film? It looked kind of very graphic designy. Sort of, was it like an ad type of thing, or?
no, it was a scene person. I mean, we saw her on the street in the scene a couple of years later, but in the same year, actually, 59, her husband was into making movies and part of the new music scene, experimental music scene, and doing Vortex concerts at the planetarium, and part of that art and cinema movement that was going on in the late 40s, early 50s. And she wanted to make films, and so he showed her and helped her, and that's actually him speaking the track. And the film was shown around, at the time. She also hung out with another guy, and it was in his film, Christopher McLean, who's another beat poet.
I know of him. I saw at least two of his films many years ago, though.
Yeah, she made 2 or 3 films, and then she disappeared. I forget she eventually got another last name on top of it, and luckily the Academy or somebody preserved those about 10 years ago. Thank God, because they were just floating around out there in the.
It's very strange to watch movies in this type of format. I like it.
Here?
Yeah. But what's interesting, the big difference, like when my dad did Aleph, when he showed it to friends, well, first of all, the film was finished when he died. He had a beginning, he had an end, and then the stuff in between, he was always working on it off and on. Either a great deal of time on it, or he'll leave it aside for a while, go back to it later. It was something that was never actually ever like finished. But he did have an ending, with Bob shooting up heroin in the end. Starts off with him getting ready to do a shoot, and then the end of the film, it's him actually injecting the heroin. And my dad would never ever, he never showed this in a theater. His film, when he was alive, he only showed it at home or at somebody else's house, but usually in a most casual way imaginable. Like there'll be somebody at our house or a few people at our house, and they'll say, "Gee, would you like to see what I'm working on? Or see this film I'm making?" And then they'll say yes, of course, and then he'll take the projector, 8mm projector, put the film on, and either screen it on the refrigerator or a white wall. And it was the standard 8mm, size, very small, standard 8mm size. And that's how he showed his film. He never showed it in a theatrical setting, never sent his film out to be shown either in a professional or unprofessional manner. He only showed the film when he's actually projecting the film himself.
So it's really true about the refrigerator. I read that somewhere about
Yeah.
Is that because that was the only clean white space?
Yeah, very practical, like, and there's not a lot of people, maybe 2 or 3 people. So let's go to the kitchen and we'll watch it on the refrigerator.
These spaces you lived in, I guess they were all different, but they were relatively small spaces anyway.
Very
correct?
small, I mean, like Beverly Glen, where most of the Aleph is filmed, is basically a one-room structure with stilts looking over the mountain. And it was basically, when you walk into the kitchen first, which is a very small kitchen, and then you go into the living room, which is where they slept. My parents slept and lived and had dinner and socialized. And then I had my own bedroom. I had my own bedroom. And then off my bedroom was the bathroom. So anybody who went there had to use the restroom, had to go through my room to go to the bathroom. So I had no escape from anybody then. It was like, my life was totally there for everybody. But it was very small. And Topanga Canyon home of the late 60s and the 70s was equally small. And it was a 2-story structure, but a very small space. My dad didn't work in great large spaces.
No, he's a very interior guy, is what it appears to me. All this.
And so the studio at the time in Beverly Glen the living room was also his studio. So the left side of the room is where he worked, did the seminars. The right side is where the couch bed is. And later, in 65 perhaps, our next door neighbor, a person who lived across the street, loaned or gave my dad space, like a studio space that he could actually go to and work in. And even that was small. That had like a little bathroom, sort of a little kitchenette, and what was probably like a living room or a work room at one time. So my dad converted that space into a studio. That was like his first outside the home studio.
When doing this introduction, finding your dad's work, like I said, to put together this evening and talk to you and stuff, I was amazed at how much work he actually ended up really doing under the givens of all this.
Well, he worked every day, like he was pretty much he worked. I mean, he was always in his studio or his workspace every day. My mom's the one who had to go out and get a job or do outside work, either as working in a boutique, sometimes office work, but mostly working in boutiques. At the time, she worked in Beverly Hills, like a Beverly Hills boutique. And so my father would take care of me during the day. But him taking care of me during the day was not him just chit-chatting with me and taking me to a park or a play. It's me watching him work. So that's every day is just me sitting there watching him work. That's my daily life with my father.
This is where it varies greatly from my own upbringing.
Really? I thought everybody had the same upbringing there.
Although I did spend summers traveling with my dad. He sold refrigerators to small stores.
That refrigerator was shown. My dad used that refrigerator for a screen.
Well, maybe, yeah, it's possible. But I would go with him and sit in the car while he would go do his sales stuff. You know what I mean? So I had a similar experience in a utilitarian other way. Yeah.
It's the same. It's not that far different, but so
it's bizarre.
My dad would make me lunch, and he was the most horrific, worst cook I ever imagined. He was terrible, and I was so looking forward to my mom getting back home so I could eat a proper meal.
Some food.
I was really, really grateful whenever my mom came home. As tired as she was for working, a full day's work, she made a delicious dinner for me and my dad, and I really, really appreciated that. Because my father was a terrible cook.
let's keep on our journey on time because I'm leading up to the film.
You don't want to talk about cooking anymore? I think cooking is very
No,
important.
I want to go to the outdoor gallery next.
Okay, outdoor gallery, no kitchen.
Which when he I guess your mom decided to leave LA after that.
Well, they left Los Angeles due to sort of bad feelings he had about the seminar, about the Ferris Gallery show. I mean, it was it's funny to talk about it now, and there's a sense of humor about it. But at the time, my dad took it very seriously, and he was truly disturbed and bothered that he got arrested, that his show got closed down. You know, I mentioned this before, especially in my book, but my father has a lineage of failures. You know, he got kicked out of high school for gambling, Fairfax High School. He got kicked. He had to go to the Navy, or he had to do military service, or go to like kids jail. So he chose military service. He got kicked out of the military. Then he went to art school, Chouinard. He got kicked out of art school, and then he finally has his opening group show, not group show, his solo show, and he got kicked out of his show. He got kicked out of the gallery.
That picture we showed of the moment of, I guess he's been served papers and he knows he's in deep doo-doo. The look on his face is so sad.
Well, it's not like he knew he was in doo-doo. He was just like, I think he was just really disturbed that he had to go through something like that.
Yeah, no, it's horrible when the authorities come down on one. It takes the foundation out from underneath you, and that photo is quite phenomenal, capturing that moment.
And the reasons why that all happened is, you know, it's not really totally clear to me. But I think somebody in the gallery did call the police, and I think they wanted to generate some publicity of some sort, and it turned into sort of a horror show. At least for my father, it turned, you know, kind of horrific. Ferris Gallery lived and existed for years afterwards. It was fine. But, you know, strangely enough, though, my dad did show bitterness of that time period, and he was bitter. But, you know, this bitterness did not stay with him for a long time at all. It's something, you know, he got over it. He didn't, you know, we never talked about it. He never dwelled into the misery of all this. He accepted what happened and he went on. He left Los Angeles in a kind of huff to San Francisco, and he enjoyed life in San Francisco and Larkspur. But he was never bitter about Los Angeles. He missed Los Angeles, and he came back to Los Angeles eventually.
Well,
and he loved galleries. He loved the art world. He loved gallerists. He loved gallery people.
Let's take a look at the gallery that he formed, right off the bat, out of the box, so to speak.
Yep.
This is pretty phenomenal stuff if you're not familiar with it. These are more Getty things. They're buried.
They don't have the piano, do they? They got that piano in the background?
I hope not, but God only knows. You know.
It is better to be moist.
These are Herms being moist.
That's George Herm's voice. There's George on the right.
The arc I live in.
Oh, wait, here we go. Here's the birth of the gallery.
That aspect of it was encouraged by all that. You know, this is a circus.
Here we go.
Charles, next to the ark I live in, or rather about 30 yards away, there's a one-room pad right on the water, no roof, beatest walls, no glass on windows, dirty-ish white, greatest textures. I'm thinking of having one-day exhibitions there for select creative thinking people to view. We'll mail out personal announcements. Would like to have a one-man show of your photographs. About 10 photographs should do it, maybe 15. Would have to check size of photos with space. Possibly you could even attend. I would do it on a Sunday. If not, why not mail me the photographs you select, and I will take the best of care and mail them back. They would be exhibited for about 3 hours, and I will be present while they are shown. Let me know soon, as I just received the idea as I walked by the place.
So that's kind of, you know, really interesting. I mean,
that's the birth of an idea. That's the birth of a gallery. that was the first gallery other than my own that I was ever shown in. Remember, all these people are very young at this time, so it's finding out who your friends are going to be in life too, and who it's like when you're on the phone and you get off the phone with someone, you say, "Oh God, you're exhausted." Other people, you get off the phone, "Yeah, let's go to work," you know. And so, how do you do that in life? And this was a circle of friends that helped each one have a full life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There you go. Ah, there we go. So this leads us to the film. This picture, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this picture at that same space or somewhere else? Do you know?
It's the same space.
It looks
Yeah,
like
that's Larry Jordan's wife at the time, and obviously a picture of Billie Holiday. That's tape.
Yeah, I thought that it was appropriate to bring us back to some of the other filmmakers, but the Aleph, which is the key to this whole thing we're up to here, I think, isn't it? I mean, I think.
Yeah, and Patricia. Her name was Patricia, and my dad wrote down Patricia down there.
I think she's still alive too. I think.
I'm afraid no, unfortunately.
No, she isn't.
No.
Well, Larry is, unless something happened.
Larry's still with us.
Yeah, Larry's a character that somebody needs to write a book about.
He's a marvelous filmmaker. You know,
he's a marvelous everything. Just incredibly rich life, and part of this whole group of folks.
He is very much so. So the gallery, you know, I guess George explained it that my dad, found the space, was like 2 doors down from our home in Larkspur. And he just took over that space and made it into a gallery. Of course, there was hardly any walls there, hardly any ceiling. I don't think there was any ceiling.
It's a great picture for the ceiling issue.
And then I think there's like holes on the wall, on the floor as well. So, it's very dangerous to actually be in the structure.
Yeah, you see one on the bottom, it's covered with a board.
So therefore, this was a perfect place for my dad to start his gallery. And only for 3 hours on a Sunday. That's it.
Right. It was all his.
Well, not the artwork, but the gallery is going to be open from 2 to 4, 2 to 5 on a Sunday. And I think that's it. There's this 1-day show, this 2 hours. If you miss it, you missed it.
You missed the show. You missed the boat, literally.
And my dad, and for George, my dad did make a poster for the George Herms exhibit. How that poster was distributed, I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. But
is it something we see here or not? No.
Not so far. No. And these photographs, I believe, are by Charles Britton, just to give credit to the photographer.
Yeah, I don't think they were well captioned in wherever I got them from. These people were. That the eyes are what threw me. This fascination with the eyes is pretty strong.
Yeah. Charles was a wonderful photographer. Very fortunate that he was there to capture that.
Incredible.
That's from my dad's film.
Yeah, we're going into the film now. Can you explain quickly for everyone who might not be the fascination with the letters, because this is key to almost everything.
Well, my dad was interested in the Kabbalah, which is a ancient form of Jewish mysticism, and it was something. The Kabbalah. I wish David Meltzer was still around and alive, because he could explain this way more better than me. But the Kabbalah is like a mystical, slightly magical, occult language, and there's 21 letters in the Hebrew language or in the Kabbalah. As far as I know, my dad could not read Hebrew, but he could pronounce the characters. He could pronounce the characters. So in a way, it could be a sense like sound poetry to him, like Kurt Switter's of that sort. But also, each letter, there's something doing with numbers, or there's a number aspect of the Kabbalah. And I think this is what interested my father, because my father liked to gamble. He was interested in gambling. He was interested in numbers. And I think the Kabbalah has that element. And also keep in mind that a lot of my father's favorite heroes, like Charles Baudelaire and Rimbaud and Artaud, all had and Marcel Duchamp, all had a interest in the Kabbalah for various reasons. So I think originally the idea of the film will be like 11 or 21 chapters, and each letter would be the chapter heading. It was sort of like chapter 1, one Hebrew letter, images, then another Kabbalah letter. That'd be like sort of chapter 2 and so forth. It's sort of structured that way, or not sort of. It is structured in that manner.
And the film, because it was shifting all the time, as you mentioned earlier, never, I think somebody said somewhere 11 letters were dealt with in the film proper?
I believe so, yeah, I think 11. I never actually, counted them, but I believe that was the original intention, yes. I think the original intention is to be like at least, what we have is about 8 minutes. And I think originally my dad was maybe thinking about doing a half an hour or 25-minute, film. But again, this is not written in stone. This is something he was thinking about as he was making the movie.
The also the way you said that he showed it, just whipping it out and screening it, that would lead to all kinds of accidents too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the film broke and caught on fire. Every type of damage you can imagine happened. My dad was not precious with the film. I mean, he just sort of showed on the 8mm like breaks, start burning up. And instead of losing his temper or going crazy, my dad went, huh? And he was snip the damaged film, put it in a box, and deal with it later. And then put the film back on the projector and continue showing the film. So in a way, the film is edited as my father is showing the film. I mean,
right, exactly. And this leads me to something I don't think is in your book. I jumped around your book, so I don't know if I missed it.
You didn't read from the beginning to the end?
I can't do it. I just can't do it with you set up the chapters such that it makes it really fun to jump around.
Do I have to read the whole book to you? I mean, is this what it comes
to? We have to be off at 9:45. Otherwise, you could start.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do it on the show. I'm not going to do it for these people. I'm going to do it just for you.
Oh, okay. We'll work that out. But what I was going to ask is this: what's not in the book, I don't think, is him actually watching. Since you watched him do everything else, can you explain him editing the film?
He worked with well, it's all on hand. He had like a splicing kit for 8mm film. People out there could explain it better than me, but basically he had like a whole kit to edit film for like 8mm format, and he used cut, scissors and splicing, but he also put lettering like what you have there. He actually put that lettering over the image, and he painted with dye, like some type of film dye or some type of dye. He actually painted on the actual film as well.
Is that what the colors are we're seeing here, you think?
Yes,
maybe the
that's
yellow?
the stuff that he painted by hand, as well as the lettering is by hand. So very much the film is very much of a collage. I mean, it's like a collage assemblage piece of sorts on film.
Now, is this letterset type, or is this something?
I believe it is. I believe
the letterpress somehow.
I believe it's that, as well as him hand painting certain things.
Interesting. Why I put this in is film is runs through the projector like on the right. That method of how it goes, and that's how one sees it. But when one edits, you see it like on the left, usually, because you're usually winding it from left to right. But what's fascinating with this film, at least for me, I mean, one of the things that's fascinating about the film is and the reason I came to you to begin with was that when I've seen it many times in the past.
Andy says it's letterset.
It's letterset. Okay, is he on there somewhere, Andy?
I just saw his name pop up, I think, on the chat.
So Andy, if you're in there, please do speak up, because you've had your hands on all this stuff. I'm just talking off my hat. But please do turn your mic on and join in if you like. It'd be nice to hear your comments.
He says, "Will do." He's going to be here. That's what he says. At least what I'm getting.
Okay, I have my thing turned off, so I can't see that right now.
Again, we have a special guest, a very, very special guest.
Oh, he's going to do it? Okay, good.
So,
well, as soon as he does, we'll see his little name and picture and all that
stuff. What happens.
But what I was going to say is what's fascinating to me is while watching the film, it's always a mystery what's going on. Graphically, it's happening so fast, and there's so much noise with all the lecture set in the dirt and this and that. But what I found was while watching on the computer, sometimes I'll turn my laptop sideways, or I'll be on the floor, laying down and looking at. So I'll be looking at it sideways. The film is almost impossible to physically watch sideways.
I never actually thought of doing that.
Well, I've never had the experience with any other
if I do that.
Yeah, exactly. If it's running by, when we show it next time in a few minutes, you turn your thing sideways and see what transpires for you. It's impossible to see it this way. But the other thing that's interesting, at least to me, is that like his use of the Kabbalah letters, the Hebrew letters.
Yeah.
And they may have meaning, they may not. It doesn't really matter. It's that they're there more graphically than anything else.
Well, because his work is very graphic as well. You can find deeper. His work is obviously very textured. There's layers and layers that are in everything he did. You can enjoy it on a total visual level. It's very interesting. A lot of when I showed this film in New York at a bookstore, and I was doing a reading and talking about my dad. And this guy came up to me afterwards, and he was like, he was jogging. He had jogging clothes, and he saw the image, and he went into the bookstore, and he was a graphic designer he was a film editor, and he said, "Oh my God, that is incredible work of editing on this film." He didn't know what it was about or anything of that, but as a graphic art person, not like a fine artist, but as a graphic art person, he really appreciated my dad's images, and I also get that attention from graphic art people or commercial artists who look at my dad's work and they really admire sort of his graphic sense. So it's that level. My dad had the chops or the talent to make attractive image in front of you. And then on top of that, then there's all the poetry and then the Kabbalah and then, the images and who these people are. So, I could see why people are so, have a great interest in my dad's work because there's a lot there. And I don't know anything because my dad never talked about it. He never talked about anybody about his artwork. He never said, well, Bruce, look at my work. And this is Dean, this is me, this is Tosh, and there's a Kabbalah, and each Kabbalah means this. He never said stuff like that.
See, I don't think you can because, and I can show you when we put the film on later and stop and start a little bit. There's a couple places when I was looking at it ahead of time to think of things to say brilliant, to you. There's some sections that, although when you're watching it moving, it's this means this and this is it. But when you're watching it slow, the 2 shots or 3 shots next to each other, they don't mean anything.
Well, I disagree with that. I think it does mean stuff. But
it might. I'll show you some.
It's how you perceive the images and how you look at the images. I mean,
this one on the screen right now is a great example of it. What does it say, if anything, in little?
It says, "Hello, Bruce. I hope you enjoy my film. Although we haven't met, I'm talking from the past. Say hello to my son, Tosh."
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification. I definitely needed that.
Now, the lettering is interesting. Okay, now lettering is where you look at letters, you look at the image, and then if you try to pronounce it, there's sounds, or you try to make a sound. My dad, I think, had equal interest in the sound of words or letters as well as looking at it visually.
Oh, it's incredible in the print. Here on the example, I put this in here just for that reason. On the left, is that it could be IN or NI, right? But the top is what? Is it M? Is it W? Is it a claw?
It could be a drawing.
Is it 2? Is it okay? Now that I'm looking, maybe it's an R and something else together, an R and an N together.
Yeah.
But you don't see it when the movie's going by very quickly, though. By the way, with the projecting, I know we're going to come back to Bruce Conner by the end here of this evening because of their closeness in many areas here, but he had a projector that ran 5 frames a second. I think there was a certain projector, Bolex projector, which ran really slow. Did he ever run the film slower than just whatever the normal?
I believe he always showed the film silent speed.
Okay.
He never showed it slower. No.
And then somewhere else, somebody mentioned the issue of looping. Did he loop the film, or was it literally end to end and that show's over? And
I don't think he looped. I wish we could get Andy here. Andy, are you around? Is he around? Let's see. Hold on a second. Maybe he's kind of difficult.
Hello?
Oh,
Is
he's
that, is that you? Is that your
Hey,
voice?
That's me. Hi, guys.
Well, hello.
Hi. So I don't want to Shanghai this. This is Bruce's presentation. Thank you, Bruce, for doing it.
Oh, I'm just babbling along here, Andy. Nice to hear you.
What was it?
Please.
What was the question though? Was there a question, Tosh?
We were talking about, he asked about if there's looping involved in the film. And I believe there isn't looping.
Not in the. I mean, I think that Bruce is right that Bruce Conner made a number of films which he reduced down to 8mm, and they were supposed to be projected at 5 frames per second, like Class Portrait and the original Easter Morning Raga and things like that, or slower frame rates. But from what you and your mother told me, it sounded like your father had a shitty Revere 8mm projector that ran at one speed, I'm guessing, which is 16 or 18 or whatever, somewhere in that world, and that's what it was, which is why the length of the film is whatever it is, 8 minutes instead of 5 minutes. You know, that's why it gets a little confused sometimes when you see it attributed to have different running times.
Right.
Cool. Okay, that explains a lot, Andy. Thank you.
Sure, I'm gonna go mute if you need me. I'm watching.
You'll perk up. Okay. Thank you, Andy. Oh, wonderful to hear you. And these, I think, are all the other letters that are in the film, besides the Aleph. You know, if that means anything to anyone.
Well, it's all symbolic. I mean, it's all very the Kabbalah does mean stuff, and letters do mean stuff. But my dad, again, did not know the Hebrew language. He definitely studied the Kabbalah in a certain sense. He knew how to pronounce the word or the characters.
Well, you know, the Jewish religion, if that's a way to put this, it sounds like he was brought up that way.
Well, he wasn't. He's Jewish, but he'd never been to a temple in his life.
Okay, well, I went the full route and got bar mitzvah and the whole bit, which means you had to study the Torah
not my dad.
In the language.
Yeah.
You know, if we put a gun to my head right now, I could not tell you even what those letters were.
My dad went directly to the jazz clubs. He didn't go to a temple or any religious service.
Well, there's a relationship. That singing that they did is pretty much the same. This is the box. These are the boxes, I guess, you gave anthology.
Yes, and these are stuff that my dad will throw in the box if they broke off, or he didn't want to use it anymore, or he want to use it later. You know, he kept all of it.
Was there you mentioned earlier there was that, you know, his death ended the film, so to speak.
Yes.
Was there periods of like hot pursuit, you know, where he's really working on it and other times not, or did that really mean anything? Actually, would you show us the camera since it's sitting right next to you there?
Well, this is the camera that he shot Aleph with.
Okay, thank you. Any of you that are 8mm people know that camera well, I bet.
It's a Bolex?
Bolex, yeah.
Yeah, it's a Bolex.
I asked Tosh if film was still in it.
No.
Part 2.
Then finishes the movie. And then you wind it. You know, there's a winding thing here.
Yeah, and you had to turn the roll over too.
Yeah.
I
have to tell you, my father always had this camera with him when he went out.
That's fascinating. See,
we all walk with the camera. Let me tell you a story. This is interesting. I find it interesting. In the movie, there's footage of Mick Jagger and the Stones, and in that photograph, and that footage is from originally from the TAMI show, the TMI show. We were invited to go to a dress rehearsal, and so my dad took me. We went to the dress rehearsal. My dad brought the camera with him, and he could have shot at the dress rehearsal, no problem. Nobody would have stopped him or anything. At that time, there was no concern about stuff like that. And my dad didn't do so for whatever reasons. But when the movie came out, the TAMI show became a movie. It was a movie. And we went into the movie theater, and he actually filmed it from a movie screen. He actually, you know, he was there. I mean, Mick Jagger was in front of him in real life, they choose not to photograph him, but he chose to photograph him from a movie screen. And I think my dad had, again, there's a textual issue. You know, my dad liked the film image of a film image. And that's something he liked a lot. I mean, I think, you know, it's interesting. Yeah, all of it is very interesting because it's partly home movie, meaning that I'm in the film. But if you look at my dad's Fairfax collages, you know, the handheld images, all those images are from secondhand sources. They're all from photographs that were printed like in Look magazine, Life magazine, or Geographic or whatever, porn magazines, whatever. He never used an image that he photographed and put it inside the transistor radio. It was always a found image of sort.
Well, this is like perverse. It's one of the reasons I, in the way subconscious, whatever, is why I put the James Brown film in at the beginning.
Well, my dad was a big James Brown fan. He had a piece called Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, and very rarely did my father title his work, but he did make a piece called Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, and my dad played that song consistently in the studio. We're talking like 2 hours worth of Papa's Got a Brand New Bag in a row.
We'll come back to that in a second, Josh, because there's going to be a whole section on that if we get that far. What I wanted to do is, since you're in a rap mode, is
Hold on 1 second.
I want to put the film on.
Okay, I have to step out just for 1 second.
Okay, well, I tell you what, I understand. I'm in the same boat. Let's all take a little break and be back in less than 5 minutes, 3 minutes.
I could do 2 minutes. I'll do 3 minutes. I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm going to put the movie on for everybody else in the meantime, okay? I can. By the way, before I go off on the movie land, does anybody have anything they really, any burning questions that they'd like to ask?
Sure. I'm curious about the silence of the film and whether when Wallace played it for his friends and anyone to see it, like, did he ever accompany it with music? I feel like I've read something about it along the way.
We're going to get into that. That's why I backed off when he started talking, because he first told me he didn't want to show any sound with it. And I think I'm going to hopefully force it.
Yeah, I think you can find versions where people have put music to it, but like I think the official is like it doesn't have a score, right?
I don't know if there's anything official except for what Tosh witnessed,
exactly,
which is the truth, right? I mean,
that's the best truth we can have. So
so we'll soon see. Thank you for asking that. It's going to be dealt with. I'm just watching the clock. I mean, we're really all over the place here, and we have a lot of great stuff yet. Anyone else while we're waiting for Tosh to come back?
I could just say something.
Sure.
When the film finally came out on that big collection of American avant-garde films, the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
It mentions, it's said in there that sometimes he would, and again, Tosh maybe could confirm this or not, that sometimes he would play some music with it, especially Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, as a matter of fact. But John Zorn created a soundtrack for it, which is optional on the CD collection.
Bring this up when he comes back, when we get to that part, because it ends up John Zorn also wrote one of the nice little blurbs on his book, the promo blurbs that people write, saying great book and all this stuff. So they're obviously tied together somehow. And the other person could speak up if they want to. Tosh is back. Okay, Tosh, hold on a second, Rich. We had two really good questions. They're going to come up. We had two really good questions while you were gone about music in the film, which we're going to bring back to in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So if we could just hold on that.
I'm not going to take another break now. I'm here till the end.
Well, the question is, I don't know if I'll make it, but we'll just see. It'll be a test of wills or something.
I could stay here till 3 a.m. It'd be weird.
Well, I don't know. We get shut. There's a witching hour with the library. That's the problem. We get shut off at a certain point. So we're going to run the film, and we can stop and start as we're going.
Okay. Do you want to stop?
Go back.
So, well, no, I would tell you that's the beginning of the film, obviously, And that is Bob Alexander about to shoot up.
I thought he was
Hannibal.
going to work.
So that's the beginning of the film.
Yeah. Which is he the same person at the end of the film too?
Yes.
Okay, let me find
This is
one.
where the beginning and the end part, like it's very, this is the tightly edited in that sense. There's the beginning and there's the end.
That's really great to hear. And you know, when one watches it over and over again, like I have to get my act together here, you sense some of the parts that are clearly done, so to speak, or consciously where they're at. Okay, so anyway, Bob's going at it. This is a horrible question, and maybe it's not age appropriate for you at the time.
For me?
Yeah. Do you remember the drugs? I mean, what is this?
Yes, I do remember drugs. My dad was not my dad was totally a definitely a pothead. He did not like hard drugs whatsoever. He was not really a druggy person, to tell you the truth, on his side. But there was drugs in our environment, and you know, with friends and social life. Yes. So that okay, like well, okay, so. Interesting enough, the Junkie book that we just missed, that's William Burroughs' book. That's William Burroughs, at that time it was William Lee, I guess. That's the first time that Junkie appeared as a paperback, and my dad had a copy of it. So my dad was aware of Burroughs' work at the time. And
did he reproduce some of it in his magazine, his zine? I thought he did.
Naked Lunch was reproduced. I think my dad I can stop right there. My dad was the first person to, I believe, this is probably argumentative, but I believe my dad was the first one to actually have a little excerpt of that book in the publication. This is Buster Crabbe.
Which, you know, some of this stuff is like amazing to think of under all the givens of the situation that you've explained to us, the physical locale, the offness, the separation, but hanging out with people. And then they do these things that have cultural significance to this day,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in a bigger sense, the cover of Sergeant Pepper's.
Yeah. So that, the first thing you stop, that's, okay, well, okay, it's okay.
The leg?
Stop there. That's Buster Crabbe, Flash Gordon, and I was sort of raised, well, I was raised in a household that really loved Buster Crabbe, Flash Gordon. Something my dad was really into. He sort of just discovered drawing from reading the comic strip, admiring the art of the Flash Gordon. His name was Alex Raymond, who invented Flash Gordon. And Alex Raymond, I think, was a strong early teenage influence on my father's work, for sure. And he greatly admired this film, as well as Kenneth Anger. I believe that was one of Kenneth Anger's favorite movies as well.
But, you know, Kenneth Anger's coming up in conversations here and there, but not, I don't think he's really in your book.
I don't know. No, my parents knew him, and they didn't socialize with him on a daily basis, but they knew each other.
It seems all the filmmakers or people that are making films somehow knew each other in one form or another.
Yeah, it's such a small world. I mean, the internet makes everything small, but even then it was even smaller, where if you did something in the arts, you immediately know the other person. You know, it's you know, the whole beat scene really is a small planet. You know, if you write poetry, you have a small magazine, obviously you're gonna know all the other people, all the other participants, or all the people out there. They'll come to you.
You hear the same thing of New York and the artists in the 30s and 40s and 50s. You knew everyone. I mean, you literally.
And my dad's seminar was that type of journal that attracted people, as well as him approaching people. So yes, Eric von Stroheim, that's pretty good. This is Gloria right there. And Gloria was at the time a hairdresser and a friend of my uncle's. And for a little while, she was Dean Stockwell's girlfriend.
Now,
that's my dad.
Just to get this straight, the film is separated by the letters, which I guess somebody in the chat space, I'm sorry, I don't have the screen up where I can look at that, but a woman mentioned something about the organization of the letters. Are you still there, whoever mentioned that? And
I'm trying to find her chat. Yes, we are campaign.
Do you see her? I don't know if she's still on. If she is, we should speak up.
I got a lot of Tony fans here, a lot of Tony Basil fans here.
Well, that's good.
Really fan.
But anyway, it seems like clear demarcation throughout the film. It might not be ordered exactly, but it definitely seems to be, okay, remember the letter.
Okay, a lot of these images, like stop right here. A lot of these images are like, I was raised with these images on the walls of our homes. Like that is Nijinsky, the ballet dancer, the great ballet dancer of the Russian blues. My dad loved dancing. He was a great dancer. He was a great swing dancer, which I never saw him do, but I've heard reports that he was like a championship swing dancer during the 40s. And he loved the ballet world. And I also know he never went to the ballet. I don't recall him ever going to the ballet, but he collected images of ballet performers, and he really loved Nijinsky. He loved Nijinsky's diary. As a teenager, he practically made me read that book. He was a huge fan of the Russian, rouge of the teens and the 20s. He loved the idea of the ballet world was people consisting of Jean Cocteau, Eric Satie, Picasso, and so forth and so forth. And I think my dad, in a very romantic way, loved that world, and he loved the world of dance.
I love the cat.
Yeah, our pet cat at the time.
There's a really interesting rhythm through the whole thing. Not rhythm, images of buildings that get thrown in.
Well, I think generally, I think the film has a great sense of rhythm. You could either watch this film with music in the background or no music. I actually sort of prefer no music because I could feel the rhythm more stronger that way. It works well with music. I mean, there's nothing wrong playing music with it, but I think my dad's interest in dance and movement, I think that interest in dance transferred into this work in Aleph. I feel this is almost like a dancer's film in a way.
There was a thing that Brackage made a big deal about in person and private, whatever, but it was the issue of how one's body and shooting go together. And he would practice moves over all kinds of crazy stuff. And in this film, when you look at it many times, you start to see different tactics that your father takes in shooting.
Well, he's a very, when I was with him when he was shooting, he was very casual. I mean, it wasn't very like, his photography is different. He actually posed me in still photographs, but never posed me in a film. He's just
nonetheless, it obviously is casual. I mean, it looks casual.
This is Louise Herms.
Excuse me?
This is George Herms' wife, Louise, at the time, a very close friend of the family.
There's different rhythms, and they see it in the editing because he'll go back from one rhythm to another in the film.
That's me.
Yep.
That's me.
The hands enter the picture this way, which is different than the thumbs up.
It's like a rhythm. It's like a rhythm thing. It's like stop, go.
Yeah.
It's a rhythm thing. It's a rhythm.
That's what I'm there. That's just what I was just saying moments ago.
Yeah.
He'll have one thing and another thing, one thing and another thing. The other thing he does, which is really perverse in his only, is he has the camera and he moves it up at shots. This little movement, a slight movement to focus on the subject or to go away from the subject.
Yes.
And up, down, up. It's very fascinating.
Yep.
So he never really talked about the film.
Oh, never.
Besides showing it.
Exactly.
Interesting.
He'll show his works to people or show the film, but he'll never talk about the film.
Because the amount of labor, no matter how casually he approached it, which is not casual at all, I don't think, is immense.
Well, he's not a casual person by any means. He was very articulate in his work and the way he worked.
And I'm sorry for such poor copy, but this is all that was online.
Well, it's interesting. Again, my dad would show this one-to-one or like 5 people at a time, never organized. Not like tonight we're going to have dinner and we're going to watch Aleph. It's basically,
Again.
There's like a lull in the conversation. Nobody has anything to say. So, well, let's maybe watch a movie, and then my dad would show the film. But again, it's interesting that he, it's like an extension of his body. He was there showing it, and seeing it on video, even the movie theater, it's totally different from when my dad showed it. The format is very important.
Craig Baldwin made it. He's an interesting character, and it was a great quick run through your dad's life. But he made one quick comment that was nice about you when he said, and he's still here, and he's online publishing, and that is you, but it is amazing to transpose whatever he was up to then to now what you've done in your life, in the sense of you're using what's available to do this. We could do this now because we have these.
Yeah, but I realized from him, and this is what I learned from him, that each format is different. 8mm is different from Super 8. Super 8 is different from 16, 35. Video, DVD is different from VHS. Vinyl is different from CDs. Each format is good, but there's not the same thing. Now we sort of confuse everything as the same thing.
You couldn't make this film today.
Well, I don't know about that, but you could, but no, funny, watching this movie with my dad running the projector is a totally different experience than what we're doing right now.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, I'm just saying again, each format is different. The format of my dad never showed it in a dramatic way. He never said, okay, is the lighting dark enough in here? Hey, everybody, turn the lights off. Hey, turn the kitchen off. He was never that type of person.
Well, where I'm sitting, there's lights on and everything.
Yeah. but what I'm saying, he wasn't fussy about the surroundings. He liked sort of the restriction of doing things live as it happened, and he was a perfectionist. He was a control freak. But his choice of showing the film was done in a very sort of casual manner. It was never in a formal manner. It's not like, okay, show's gonna start at 8 o'clock. Everybody sit down, get your beer, sit down. It was all very like, he showed it when he wanted to show it at the time.
Well, I'm hoping we somewhat emulate that this evening, because that's literally, this is the environment of us watching.
We are in a sense, but it's a totally format. We're watching on a computer screen. We're not in the same room.
So true.
It's different.
But we're almost all alone. I think most of us are singular watching right now. So there's that issue of it's personal.
You don't know who's under my table right now.
I don't. Please, I'll pass.
You don't know. That's Russ Tamblyn, the actor and a good friend of my dad.
And Russ and Dean made movies too during this period.
My dad, is the guy who said, I think they inspired them for Dean and Russ to do their own art, visual art and movie making. Yes.
Now, this is one of the great books of all time.
I have a story to that book.
Please do. That's why I stopped.
My parents were very close to the poet Robert Duncan and his husband of since, Jess Collins, a great artist, great painter, and collages. And Jess and Robert Duncan had an incredible library of children books. These are like first editions at the time. And Robert and Jess would occasionally give me these books. And so this is a gift to me from Robert Duncan and Jess.
This is one thing we do share. I grew up with these books too.
Yeah, my mother used to read them to me as a child.
And they have a certain smell to them.
Yeah.
And they have those wonderful illustrations.
Yeah, great.
And the nice big type. I could still read it today.
I'm a fan of big type these days myself.
Yeah.
I'm more of a...
Well, so is your dad, obviously. Big type there too.
Another type.
Now, this is wonderful what's going on here. But, unfortunately, we're running out of time, which I knew was going to happen. I just knew it. Because it's.
I'm sorry, I'm not leaving. I'm here till like 6 o'clock in the morning. You guys may leave. I'm going to stay right here. I'm not moving.
We'll see if Megan cuts us off or not. Sometimes she lets us go over, but we'll see when we get to the witching hour.
She needs to come. There's family, there's dinner later, so it's totally understandable.
Now, who is this?
That's something I don't know. I think that's some. Oh, this is. Hold on, give me a second. I believe that is Artie Richards' wife.
Interesting, because I think first she's shown without clothes, then she has clothes, and then this other woman who seems like from a magazine, maybe.
Yeah, that she has. Yeah, there's scenes with no clothes on, then she has her clothes on, still putting the makeup on. This is something from a magazine or a second source photograph.
And it counterbalanced with those other images, becomes almost creepy because he's like taking this woman's clothes off by showing a woman who doesn't have clothes on juxtaposed with her. It's very interesting.
And this is all in our living room in Beverly Glen, the living room.
Good to know. And this is the other woman now. It's another weird building. This building's very weird. What? Do you see what I mean by there'll be things thrown in buildings, persons?
Yeah, structures, yes.
Then it gets a little more thematic. There's dogs and this and that.
Can I check?
Michael Mcclure.
Yeah, sure. Speak up.
That's Michael Mcclure from who wrote the Beard, a great poet, passed away recently. And my dad took that photograph.
Right here. Caleb, you said you want to say something?
Yeah, just with the style of this, like you see it later on, like in experimental filmmakers later on, like taking found already existing film and cutting it up, dicing it up, making it a collage kind of thing. But from my understanding, this is all Wallace shot footage, right? But it also like kind of plays with his like Verifax, where he's like shooting images that like already exist, like magazine, book covers, stuff like that. But it's all like his film that he cut together then, right?
Yes, it's him behind the camera. It's him shooting the image. But he does shoot like secondhand.
Like the Rolling Stones.
Yes.
On screen, like, or
on the screen, or even the photograph of Mick Jagger there, or like this obviously, like that might be came from a magazine like National Geographic. They sort of Cleopatra, sculpture. That's from another image. That's a image that was on our wall. There's a photograph.
But he's taking the camera and like.
Yes.
Photographing and framing
the camera and photographing that image.
Really fascinating.
This is my dad working with the cards. He loved cards. He was like, he's really good at cards.
Well, this is the tarot cards, aren't they?
I can't remember if they were or not.
Well, let's see.
He was not really a tarot card person though, but it might have been.
I think it's a singular image. There. They sort of look like it.
I can't tell. Yeah, tarot card, yes. And that's a chapter, that one Hebrew letter, Kabbalah. Yeah. Wait, then it turns into sort of like a card, like a ace or something, or clubs or something.
Yeah, it maybe stuck two together, two texts.
Stuck two together, yeah.
It wouldn't put it past him.
Nope. No, it's all open game for him.
Well, one of the reasons I said you couldn't make this film today, besides the technology, is technology, is the letterpress. I don't think letterpress exists anymore, unless you find it on eBay or something.
Well, my dad used a lot of things that were happening at the time, like the Fairfax machine that made his collages. That only had a short period of history, right? That's Terry Garr dancing in Tammy's show. And this is, I believe, is Nureyev, the dancer, ballet dancer. Terry and Nureyev together. Margaret Fontaine.
What's
this is a portrait of Nijinsky, the ballet dancer, right here.
Oh, that's a nice picture. I was wondering who that was.
That's Nijinsky. That's very.
Did the film begin in, I think somewhere it said 1956? Is that when he started?
Yeah, there's footage that's never been used from that era that he discarded over time. The majority of stuff you see here is definitely from like 63 to 65, 65 to 63, I would guess.
So one of the reasons I asked that, besides just wondering about that whole long period, is there's just, and I think we'll have enough time to squeeze this in. There is this incredible connection with Bruce Conner that's through all this.
Well, they're very close friends at the time.
Even the shooting with 8mm, the dances, the nudes, it's just the application of things onto the film surface itself.
That's Dean Stockwell.
Yeah. The color.
Yeah, the dye. He used this sort of dye thing. I forgot what it's called, but yeah.
What's perverse about my old memory of the Brackage things was I remember this film as black and white, no color, which might have been, maybe there was copies made at first that were that way, or maybe it's just bad memory. But
yeah, every time I look at this film, I see something new in here. I mean, I know it's never the same experience. It's always something new when I see this movie.
Well, that's why I didn't think we'd have any trouble watching it many times this evening, but it didn't. It's not going to turn out that way. And then this motorcycle business. It's fascinating. On one end, it's home movie-esque, obviously. You know, somebody had a motorcycle there one day for some reason. And the other thing is the ties back to Anger, who you see the pictures of Buster Crabbe right before.
Yeah.
So there's that business of 63, I think, was Scorpio Rising when it, and it obviously moved a lot of people.
Yeah, my dad definitely saw the film when it originally came out.
Everybody did. It was almost a mainstream film, almost. Its exposure. Now, is that who's that smoking right there? That's.
I believe that's Dean Stockwell. I think.
This is downtown, right? Yeah, I guess it is him, isn't it? Is that Ginsburg or is that?
No, I think that's Dean as well.
Sorry, it's a feudal gesture. Okay.
And then the final chapter was him shooting up, and that's it. It's almost like a period of time. Cocktail's Blood of a Poet started the same way. I think you see like, I can't remember. I think the opening scene is Blood of a Poet. I saw this years ago. Where you see like these towers, and then in the film the towers collapse, right? So, and I think in that sense, my dad loved that film. So I think in that sense, he sort of edited all up in the same manner as Blood of a Poet. At least in his mind, he was thinking of Blood of a Poet.
And that in this time period, I forget the exact date, but I think it's at least 1950, if not later, is when Orphe came out. I think it's Orphe, where the radio in the car is talking.
Big influence on my dad. He loved that scene.
I mean, that radio.
Yeah, the radio thing was important to him, obviously, because of his work.
Resonates.
But the car radio thing with the poetry coming out, that had a big impression on Wallace.
I'm going to run through a couple of things quickly, and we'll bounce back and forth and see how this all works out. I just had one question about this. I wanted to show folks, if they haven't seen it, the Topanga stone and the work on stones. But is this picture knowingly, I think it was on the Cohen site, is this knowingly taken this way, or do you think it's an accident by the photographer or the Cohen? It's backwards and upside down.
Oh, that's a good question.
And it struck me as odd. It could be just, if you looked at the object from that angle, that's what you'd see, but it came up.
I can't give you an answer to that. I'm not really sure.
Because everything else reads right,
that big boulder now is at the LA County Museum. They purchased, or it was donated to them. They have that piece now. Los Angeles County Museum of Art.
In the one piece we can't play, unfortunately, because the time's run out. Herm said how beautiful this was in the moonlight.
Well, this is in front of our house. This is like on the street. So, yeah, it's right there.
It would glow. It just sounds wonderful.
Early work by my dad. Just like at first he started working with TV sets, but the music sound was so important to him. He didn't start. He just eliminated the TV Fairfax collages and just, of course, focus on the handheld transistor radio.
Yeah, these come earlier, before the radio, don't they?
Yes, this is before the radio.
This to me was great on the level of not only the nude and the body and how it's used, but it was the first example, because it's English, so to speak, where I was able to start reading it, to see the play that he has going on with the letters, you know, how it's backwards and forwards and
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's really incredible. And then to set this little puzzle inside a person's chest,
Mm-hmm.
the levels are just quite wonderful. And the message, whatever that message is he's telling, I think I got stuck on the word tenet, T-E-N-E-T, and then I started trying to read the rest of them
Uh-huh.
because I was blowing everything off as you can't read them.
Could be a Sony ad, early Sony ad.
You know, like, what does this say? You know, or besides, you know,
And here's Neil Young looking over.
yeah, which there's a whole nother road's not taken. Let's take this road though, so we can wrap up in case we do get shut off. This is actually the European record, you know, package, but this is a song that led to the picture that you.
Yeah, that's the actual work. Papa's Got a Brand New Bag in the piece.
Yeah, let me.
My dad actually met James Brown through Tony Basil.
Well, that's the other reason I wanted to show him, because it's amazing. My sister used to live across the street from him for decades.
James Brown?
Yeah, and not a nightmare.
Well, that's very impressive.
That didn't go well. Well, it was Aiken, South Carolina, where he lived, and he was always getting himself. I mean, this is in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
And he was always getting himself thrown in jail, like every third night.
It's tragic.
He wasn't your best neighbor, so to speak. Let's see if this is here.
But he is James Brown, though. I mean,
huh?
He's James Brown.
He's still, well, right. But James Brown in Aiken, South Carolina, there's still, it's why I think we had Senator Jesse Helms come to the fore.
Oh my God. Because of James Brown.
The counterbalance for James Brown.
Amazing.
This is real quick, but it's very informative, if it'll play.
In the mid-60s, James Brown, the godfather of soul, released one of his most famous singles, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag. It's also the name of this 1964 work by Wallace Berman. Berman used a precursor to the photocopy machine called Verifax to assemble material for this piece.
The word verifax, the Latin root of that, really translates into true facts. And I think that was something that was kind of at the core of what Wallace Berman was trying to project and present. Most often, the Verifax collages feature a series of repeated images in a compositional grid. But Papa's Got a Brand New Bag is different. You see pictures of each of the Rolling Stones, and you see James Brown and some of the Hebrew letters. It feels almost like there's a music quality to this piece. It's a jazz solo. This one really seems like it's a riff because it's very irregular in its imagery and irregular in terms of its layering and presentation of the images. It comes at you in a real barrage and seems to be screaming out of the top of the image.
Berman was a musician himself and lived in Topanga Canyon, an artsy Los Angeles enclave.
Not a musician.
That leads us near the end here.
He was not a musician. He didn't play an instrument.
No, but this is. I mean, he was a songwriter and a singer, but he was a producer too.
James Brown, you're talking about.
James Brown.
Oh yeah, James Brown. Yeah, but I think she mentioned that my dad was a musician. Now,
yeah, I know that was a throwaway. I think because it's the.
I'm just here to present the facts. I just want nothing but facts here.
Well, good luck. Pack a lunch.
I'm curious, what you think about James Baldwin saying that your father was killed driving a motorcycle? He was driving your car, apparently, according to your book, right?
Yes, James Baldwin said that.
Craig Baldwin, yeah.
Oh, Craig, yes, Craig. Yeah, yeah, you're totally correct. He was killed in my car. It was not a motorcycle.
Yeah, and he said he, wearing a helmet with the Aleph symbol on it and everything. Yeah,
he has a helmet with the Aleph.
Yeah.
That there's a sort of well-known photograph that Dennis Copper took a photograph of my dad with the helmet on the motorcycle. He did ride a motorcycle, but he did not die on a motorcycle nor with that helmet.
Yeah, I think Craig Baldwin might have been confusing him with Richard Farina, who was
I know
in California.
We have to bless Craig Baldwin for all the good that he does. It's about.
There's nothing wrong. I mean, it's not a bad story because I can understand. It makes perfect sense because you see images of my dad on a motorcycle, Therefore, you presume, when people die, you want the most romantic aspect of their death.
Oh, you want them going into the sunset and the whole bit. But what's amazing about that clip of the Baldwin is he does all that in 8 minutes. I couldn't do that in 5 hours. I mean, it's just, where was he pulling this stuff from?
He speaks so quickly. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing. It was a good introduction. I mean,
Great introduction.
Yeah, it was good.
Beautifully rendered and yeah. So I brought this up for a reason. This comes back to all the editing and making stuff we're talking about. When it ends up, and you might remember this maybe because we talked about the music a little bit on the phone or when we talked earlier. The song's in 2 parts on the record.
Yes.
So you had to flip the record over to get the whole effect.
Yes.
Which I guess there's some other examples of that in the time period.
James Brown especially always had part 1 and part 2 on his singles. It's always like, Cold Sweat Part 1, Cold Sweat Part 2. Especially in the late 60s, his records were all like part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, I didn't know this beforehand because I'm a little bit out of that realm. I came when the bigger records came out, so to speak. But what's interesting though is when I was searching online for something to play with the film, because I really wanted to do that. I thought, wow, this is incredible. Right there's editing on just at the release, on this commercial release, there is editing, but it ends up, the song itself is about 7 minutes long, the way it was recorded.
Yeah.
And they sped it up.
Yeah.
From 60 some beats to 90 some beats per minute to make sure to cram it in the small space.
Yeah.
That's an incredible change. I mean,
I think, like the 45 RPM obviously has a certain amount of time you can put on each side technically. So, so if you get like an album version or, this, 45 RPM version, there are slightly differences. I mean, there are differences, and especially like James Brown, there'll be, quite noticeable differences.
Well, if we had time, I lined them up and played them, and it's interesting to listen to them be in sync.
But my dad played a lot of albums.
Yeah.
But my dad really liked 45 RPM singles. In a way, my dad spent so much time finding the right image for the Fairfax collage. I mean, he spent a lot of time looking at images, and it's almost he was in this like meditative state, looking at images. And this is where I play music, or he has music played in the background while he's focusing on this. And a 45 RPM single is like one song, right? It's like a song that has to be hit. It has to be the right song. It can't be sort of by accident. That song must have some type of significance. And so like the 45 RPM single, like when a producer or a record label person or the artist choose that one song to represent everything. My dad did the same way with choosing that one image for the Fairfax collage. So I think when he looked at the 45 RPM format and the aesthetic of a single record, I think that sort of stayed in my dad's mind. I think as he was working on trying to find that right image for the transistor radio image will be inside the image.
It's an incredible turn of the mind to how this works, or how it worked for him, and the results that he gave us in return.
So you have to read the entire book
in order.
Well, it's your choice. I mean, you can read it any way you want, but you must read every chapter.
The dictate changed from listening to it, you reading to me now having to read every word. This is becoming a little onerous.
I said every word. I said every chapter. You have to.
Okay, no. We'll play the tape back later. But no, I'm just kidding. It's a great book. I can't.
It's okay. It's not a great book. I read it this morning. It's kind of
It's a great book because it's a great book in the way that all these movies and his artwork are great. We have a record of a time and place that represents a side that nobody can see except through these works.
Yes.
That's incredible. It's not this happened and that happened and blah blah blah. It's these happen in a context.
Yes.
Is important for the human.
Yes, and that's why I wrote this book.
Yeah. Everybody buy 2 copies and make Tosh happy.
I love it so much. I have bookmarks all throughout the book because I have favorite parts. That's like.
Oh no! Oh God! Okay, let's end on, I mean, this has all been my favorite part, so I admit it, you know,
Okay.
we understand that's Ciné Salon. But let's end with a double dose of Bruce Conner and Wallace Berman.
Whoa, together.
Sound and silence. That's the issue. There's two things going on here, just so besides the entertainment factor of just watching these films. We've talked about sound a little bit. A good question came up earlier by Caleb and Rich about music being played with your father's film, or your father playing music with the film.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're a zillion years later, so we can kind of do anything, so to speak. But there is this issue of the music being involved in your background, in your home.
Yes.
It was there big time. It wasn't a little time. I mean, you had some of the big music makers and related people, James Brown, Brian Jones, you know, et cetera, walking through your house. Not
No. I want to say that's totally true, because it's such, having James Brown through our house, it sounds so magnificent.
Oops, I'm sorry. Well, it's close enough. He went to visit. That's still, that's better
My
than
dad visited him.
Yeah.
James Brown didn't come to my father. My dad went to James.
Okay, Neil Young then. Neil Young. We'll change.
Yes, Neil Young. Yes, Neil Young.
You get my point. The point is, you had a close contact.
I like James Brown better than Neil Young.
Well, night and day.
I prefer the night.
I will, you know, we can pick that all over the place. That, and you also had Bruce Conner, who's tied into Tony Basil and
yeah, I know Bruce. I know Bruce very well as an adult and as a child.
So let's see what Bruce was doing about the same time. Tosh, not Tosh, your father was really deep into his own film.
Okay.
And there's a weird background to this, which I'm not going to go into now, but it involves Ray Charles, which I see there's a brilliant piece of Ray Charles at the
What I say, right?
Yeah, what'd I say?
Uh-huh.
So you balance that with Papa's Got a Brand New Bag.
Yeah.
That's what we'll try to play with here in the next couple of minutes.
Okay, great.
We can shut down and see what's what. So let's start with one and see where we're gonna go. We'll go silent first. Am I on screen sharing right now or not? I don't even know what I'm doing.
I see you and I see others.
Okay. I got to share the movie, right? That usually helps. Okay, so here we go. So we're gonna watch it silent first.
Okay.
Just to gain the world of silence.
The high priest, Ray Charles himself. What a show.
What's interesting about the movie? All that's like secondhand images, except for Joan Brown. Joan Brown is an artist and a friend of my dad's and mom, as well as Bruce's. And I could be wrong, but I think the nudes are like from probably like striptease or erotic porn of the time. And all the other images are secondhand from TV ads, advertising. But and right in the middle, you know, the middle frame is Joan Brown, where she's the woman where all the costumes are changing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know it, and that I have to believe was shot by Bruce, you know, directly. You know, not.
Almost all the nudes are actually shot by Bruce too.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. There's it's. I don't know the woman's name. Maybe if anybody knows, they can speak up. Andy might know if he's still there. But yeah, no, they're.
Okay, I didn't know that. You know, it's interesting. You know, the way he photographs women are so like sexy, and it's sort of.
Well, that's why I wanted to show it. It's interesting related to your. There's just so many comparisons and dissimilarities.
And my dad, I find different because my dad's nudes are more casual. Bruce is really into the sexy female. You know, I mean, they're so beautiful and sexy. My dad films a woman putting makeup on who has no clothes on. It's not really eroticizing the woman's body in my dad's film. Bruce is definitely, you know, have the male gaze, sexy sex thing. But
well,
my dad actually had a more like a softer view, I think, of or almost a feminine way of looking at a woman's body.
He's making a clear-cut statement.
Well, it's not clear because
It's pretty clear. When that bottle pops at the end.
A few years ago, there was a show at the Cone Gallery of my dad and Richard Prince.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
called She. There's a catalog out. And the show is interesting because Richard Prince was really into like sexy looking women. His whole aesthetic and what he's projecting is sort of the projection of women, a certain type of woman, and all sort of sexy, big breasted, sexy. And you look at my dad's portraits of women, of most of who he knew, it's just people he photographed. It's more sort of lyrical and more, I won't say romantic, but much more not so highly sexualized, even though the women are very beautiful in my dad's images. They're not like kind of nasty 1950s,
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
This is maybe dissimilar, I don't know, but did your dad, maybe he's younger, too old, I don't know, Robert Heineken.
Uh-huh.
Was there crossovers there because of?
Well, it's very funny. Claudia, Sam Mellon and Claudia von Spector, who curated the last couple of my dad's shows, actually did a Robert Heineken Wallace Berman show.
Did they? Amazing. Yeah, well, it makes sense. I mean,
I didn't see the connection, but they saw the connection right away. And my dad did know Bob Heineken. He was like a neighbor in Beverly Glen, so we knew him at the time.
Because his images of women are more that magazine type.
Yeah.
But his texturing and everything is more like your father, though.
Yeah, it's interesting because my dad is from that same generation as Bruce and as Bob, and I would say my dad's point of view of women is different from theirs. But for whatever reason, I think it is actually different from them. I mean, there's another artist by the name of Ben Talbot, a really great artist, a beat era artist who should be well more known than he is. But Ben was definitely like this sort of masculine macho guy, and he had like chicks, not women, they're chicks. They're like these sort of glamorous pinup girls and kind of sexy the way he painted them. And it's sort of, men of that era were definitely attracted to that women image. My dad, not saying he's not attracted to that image, I think tends to show women a more lyrical, textural aspect more than the sort of like hardcore, like sort of sexuality coming out.
I planned this, so to speak, whenever we first met, so to speak, and I asked you and stuff. But
you're like an evil genius. You're like you planned everything.
Well, it's mini me and company, but the point being that I didn't know until this morning it's International Women's Day, which I thought this was an appropriate expose to do on that day because of what you just said. Yes. When you watch your father's film more than once, maybe once it comes off as maybe sexy, but in multiple viewings, it becomes very clear what you're saying. Very, very clear that this is part of his dailiness and these particular.
Nude body.
Yes.
I was raised with a lot of nude body, not a lot, but there's always nudity around me at the time. And it was a very natural process. The way you see in my dad's film was actually very accurate to me in my memory of seeing a nude body around me. Mm-hmm. I never saw a nude body like in a Bruce Conner film. I mean, I never saw a woman with liquid going on her body and stuff like that.
I'm jumping all over you here with this, but because you knew Toni Basil. I mean, she was part of your life, but the way that Bruce photographed her.
Yes.
In that wonderful film he made, The Breakaway.
Yes, Breakaway, fantastic.
Or even the longer 8mm version, which goes on 20 minutes or so.
And my dad photographed Toni that was published in the Feminine Culture book. And again, that's more of a lyrical, beautiful, not really, not sexually charged.
But she is out to startle the world. That's her job. She knows how to move to startle.
Well, she's
a dancer.
She's a dancer
and a choreographer
and a very beautiful woman. And
but she can move.
Oh yeah, she can move.
The hip hop videos are just phenomenal.
Yeah, she's there from the beginning. I mean, she's amazing. She's right. Somebody should do a whole documentary series and studies this on Toni.
Yeah. No, great loss here.
Not yet.
I don't know what more to say. You're right. We could literally talk to 6 a.m. I could see this would be a really great conversation.
Only 12 more hours to go on my end.
No, I was going to say around 3:30, I think it would get interesting.
It is getting close to cocktail hour for me.
Yeah, right. Well, unfortunately, here it's getting close to pillow hour.
Where the world.
And I feel so bad that we weren't able to get to a lot of things I wanted to. The James, I wanted to really explore the James Brown thing a little bit more because it's phenomenal. James made music where he adapted one song, it became successful or whatever, and then he made another version of it and moved it down the line to that funk world, that he.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how that music lines up with your father's film. Much like Ray Charles lines up with Bruce's film.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm getting at here? It's just
Yeah.
those progressions. So the loop aspect could start working with your father's film when you play a longer track. Papa's not Papa, whatever the next version was that he made of Papa.
Part 2.
Yeah, well, part 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating because anyone can put a record to a film and it usually works in one form or another. But it's amazing how they do a line. There's sensibilities carry over.
I have to imagine Bruce is a huge music fan, but my dad was, music was very huge presence in his life, and we always had a sizable collection of vinyl when he was alive. From him buying records. So, he appreciated dancing, he appreciated sounds, and the Kabbalah, I think it was like a sound piece to him in a sense. So sound and vision together is what interested him. And I presume that's what interests Bruce as well.
Well, obviously his career speaks to it. I mean, that's one of the reasons I showed that piece way at the beginning with other people, other times, but still just an amazing synchronicity. In your book, but let's maybe end on this, or wherever elaboration we go off this, is that you mentioned your father not making you. I don't know if he made you as much as that's what you had to do, of him sitting and listening to the Syd Barrett double album straight through. And then making a comment at the end. Wasn't that good?
He loved it. I mean, he liked it. And it's kind of interesting. The thing about my dad, a lot of people of his generation at the time were very stuck on a certain era. And that was it. And my dad really he had an incredible ear for what was happening. Better than me, way better than me. And
well, you were a child.
Huh?
You were a child.
Well, not a child, but he knew, he brought in the Velvet Underground album to the house, or he had the Thugs, or he had Cat Beefheart's, Trout Mask Replica, which I thought was, what is this noise? Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. I said, what the hell is this? And
but each of these I'm talking about were really exciting when they came out because they broke through somewhere or other.
It took me years to get into Bitches Brew. Now I love Bitches Brew.
I remember the Velvet Underground the first time. The story I was going to tell was my first incredible music experience with other people, on a deep level, was I was at a prep school. So I was boarded away. I mean, locked away, all boys prep school, late 60s, right? Great place not to be. Anyway, we were in the Glee Club because they would take trips to go have dances, do the Glee Club, then you'd have dance with girls, so you got some kind of, anyway, on the practices, where we got really wild was once went to the choir master's house and this one guy said, oh, this album, you're gonna love it, but we have to turn the lights out and listen to the whole thing, both sides. And it was Saucer Full of Secrets.
Okay.
So it's the same experience.
The second Pink Floyd album that Syd Barrett's on half the record at least.
Right, but the point was, I know what you're talking about. When I read that in the book, it was like, yeah, I had that experience, sort of, kind of.
And, the album I bought was a double album. It was like the two first.
Uma Guma, I think was called, wasn't it?
Well, I'm talking about the Syd Barrett album.
Yeah, okay, excuse me.
Syd Barrett, like two separate albums, but it was sold in America as a double set. And my dad actually played all four sides of that record, like just sitting down there and played everything from beginning to end.
Yeah, I was thrown when trying to find the picture of when I went the direction, and this brings it back to the beginning, when I went to go get the Sgt. Pepper stuff, which I thought was well covered, but then when I found those other pictures, it was like, great. But in the process of doing that, I fell upon these wonderful Rolling Stone, I can't remember the album now. Not Magical Mystery, that's Beatles. The Rolling Stones with the
Satanic Majesty's Request.
I think that's it, with the blue cover and the psychedelic 3D picture on the cover.
Yes, Satanic.
Okay, well, there are all these great videos now to go with it that look Larry Jordan-esque and beyond.
Oh, really? Oh.
But that's the whole point. As I looked at them, I was like, wait a minute, they couldn't have made these back then. These were made now. To go with the
These are like recent films using, okay.
that kind of technique of
I
collage
see. Yeah,
animation,
yeah.
the colors and the psychedelic sort of, it looked very Jordan. But the fact of, I guess what I'm bringing up trying to say is, again, I said a couple times tonight, your father did something and made a record by what he did. That is true to, one, being original, and two, to the times, and two, to the universe.
Yes.
Where you can't, I don't see how you can make his film today, is what I'm trying to say, or his art. The knockoff factor, I don't think is part of it. But
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's all like what ups and should haves, or what would he be like if he was alive now? I think
you're the work.
Me?
I think the work is you.
Yes.
I mean,
right.
This is the father-son relationship, which I can't categorize any other way. I mean, you could have been like in a business situation like the Trump family, but you're the scion, and I will give you the business, son. Well, he gave you the business, but it was a whole other universe.
Well, I hadn't had that many choices except to be where I am now. I mean, it was basically not thought out. It's just the way.
But you had an incredible upbringing, so to speak. I mean, it led to all this, obviously.
I realized, yes, that's true. I felt it as I was being raised by my parents, but it's obviously that's true.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that all this did happen.
Yes.
It really is a miracle what you did, carrying on your father's everything, just on his side, let alone your own world.
Well, it's very important. I didn't want to be one of those type of sons that's so tied to the father's image or the father's work that you sort of lose yourself. I mean, there's obviously there's people, I don't want to mention names, but there's people,
I've seen a lot.
Children whose whole life is devoted for their parents' well-being and keeping the legacy alive. And I am one of those people. I'm too greedy of a person myself. I'm too egotistical to actually do something like that. That's when you brought it up about me doing it solely. It's not. It's me working with other people, so I don't have to be that person who is my existence on this planet is really not for my dad's work. It's really for what I learned from my dad, and to do what I have to do for my own work and my own writing and publishing and so forth. I would not be able to do that if it wasn't for my father. In a way, I'm more like a prince than anything else. I was born in a certain type of royalty, and I'm aware of that. It's not, it wouldn't happen if it wasn't for my parents.
I mean, this is not like the Orson Welles story where there's 3 different wives and husbands, and there's 7 sets of kids, and there's all kinds of dilemmas that went on during they were all alive, and then there's no. I mean, the film world is full of those.
My life has been actually very simple. My relationships, there's a dad, there's a mom. I was one of the few people in the 60s that had a dad and mom that stayed together.
Well,
I was a single child, so I didn't have to share anything with another child or another brother or sister. So it worked up. It's a strange childhood.
And it wasn't the nuclear family, that's for sure.
What?
It wasn't the nuclear family, that's for sure.
Well, to me, it is a nuclear family. I would disagree with that. To me, it wasn't like a nuclear family, maybe like your family or people listening to us, but it was. I had a father, and I had a father in a very father role, and I had a mother in a very mother role. It's very straightforward.
No, I hear you, and that's one of the endearing things of reading the book is it all works somehow.
It works somehow.
It all works somehow. And good.
Glue, take spit, showbiz, grit. Got to do the show.
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah. No, Tosh, anybody want to pipe up before we call it an evening? Because I don't want to hold Megan up all night.
And there's also great commentary that people made as we were speaking. So if you guys have the time, I've been looking at it.
In theory, that'll all stay recorded. So I'll get a copy of that out to whoever wants it. Anybody should be able to find me easily enough. bcposner at Gmail, so it's easy. But I'll send you the things. And this, And
everybody out there can find me because I'm famous.
That's right.
You're right. Just send money to P.O. Box.
Send me money. You can always find me. I'm there.
Buy 2 copies of the book. How about that?
If you want. I mean, it's a great gift.
Gosh, You were extremely generous. I'm shocked. And you're right. I'm starting to read the comments now. And there's actually one on there from Adam. Ronnie Singh's voice. I missed what the thread is on that one. Can somebody explain quickly before we go?
That I don't know.
I know Ronnie, but
I saw that too. I don't know what that meant.
Yeah.
Okay, Karen says, you're welcome. Also, yes, I think he attended Fairfax High School. He did. My dad went to Fairfax High School, but he left before graduating. That's totally true.
Yeah, let's look.
Karen has all the right information here. Adam talks about the police shutting down, Bruce Conner loved Flash Gordon and Buster Crabbe too. That's something that Andy Lambert says that. That's something that, my dad and Bruce are the same generation, and Flash Gordon was a huge presence in that time. So yes. And Russ Tamlin had showing up film for him. And
That's a great.
I remember that day. Lots of stuff here. Great.
So I have a question since Andrew mentioned a couple of times, this fellow Dion Vignay, is that how you say his name? V-I-G-N-A?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know him. I know the name, but I don't know his work.
Have you seen the other work of his, or do you know of other work of his?
I don't. He's an artist, and I don't know his work offhand.
Because he popped out when I saw the videos, how I came to him. I mean, the film that we showed tonight. And I was, wow, okay. Well, this was exciting.
The beauty of something like Semitic Culture, which is another book I think people should pick up on, is that it's not only about my father, but it's about that whole scene. Everybody, when you think of beats, you think of Burroughs, Ginsberg, and Burroughs, Ginsberg.
Corsa.
Yes, and it is true. There's those three, but there's so many other artists involved of all sorts, and mostly doing really interesting work that people overlook. And there's a writer whose name won't mention who thought there's only 3 beats and that's it, and that's not the case.
Well, that's idiotic.
It is idiotic. You have to investigate the world, and this is all sort of like a flower blooming. You're just there. It's incredible.
Well, that's why I mentioned this one filmmaker guy that just popped up for me, because there was a bunch of filmmakers working, and when I, as a young man, when I started, you couldn't see, you didn't even know these things existed, and now not only they've been found, but they've been preserved, and you can see them like Russ's films and Dean's films. I know Dean's films though are still kind of hidden though, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the story is.
I think Connor had a bunch of them, is what the story went, but I don't know what happened to those from that point on. Maybe the Academy has them.
Dean was a very good and very well thought out filmmaker. I like his films a lot. There's something interesting before we go.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about the format thing. My dad loved when video was starting to happen in the early 70s. He liked all the video artists. Stuff, I'm thinking of stuff like Chris Burden doing his performance pieces in front of a video, and Michelle Auder, who was married to Beebe at the time, he was video documenting.
Great stuff.
My dad loved that stuff. And Dean started doing video. He made a video film that it was really like the same thing as his cinema film, like a film that format. And I was thinking in my mind, because my dad criticized Dean's as a friend, not as a, put him down, but like a friend saying, no, this is a video. You're making a film on a video. Make a video for the video format. Don't make movie on a video. And my dad, again, this is what I learned from my dad, is that each format has its own restrictions and its gains, and you have to sort of respect that. There's nothing wrong with a VHS tape. There's nothing wrong really with a CD, compared to vinyl. They're totally different formats, and it's best to acknowledge that format. And that's, a book is a book, but ebook is an ebook, a blog is a blog. I write a blog. It's not a book, it's a blog. I'll keep that separate.
This is a whole nother Ciné Salon coming.
Well, that's all I have to say. I think we should all dream about that tonight. And I wish you all a good, happy night. Stay safe. Get your vaccine when you can get it, and everything will be good.
Yeah, Tosh, I wish you the best. Just incredible. Thank you. It's been very nice meeting you. The oddest way to do it, buy the book and then Zoom with the guy.
It is a wonderful book. I got to say, I got it as soon as it came out, and I really enjoyed it. If I could just share one thing with you about how I first heard about your father, because it's amazing actually that people even know of him, considering the way he conducted himself in terms of the art world and the non-commercial aspect of all his art making, really. 2 years after your father died, I ran across this article in Art Forum. It was February of '78. And if you've ever seen this, the article says Wallace Berman, portrait of the artist as an underground man. Now, I had never heard of your father until I read this article. And after I read it, I was really amazed to hear his story. And it really was impacted on me because it was really all about family and community. That was his priority besides making art. And at the time I was living in a house with a group of other artists who were all not earning money from making art, but having a wonderful time doing it.
Yeah.
And reading about your father was really inspirational to me.
Great. I'm glad.
And I'm really glad that you were able to share your story about growing up with him.
Thank you.
But this was a wonderful article. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I must have. Who wrote it? Do you know who the writer is?
Somebody named Merrill Green.
Oh, yeah, I know Meryl. I do. Yes, I Meryl Green. Yes.
Yeah, and it actually starts with is it a woman?
Yes.
Yeah. She interviewed your mother about a year after your father died.
Yes.
And the article starts with this quote here saying, she's relating this story. A young man arrived at the door to Wallace Berman's Topanga Canyon home looking for the center of the earth. Someone had told him, he claimed, that Wallace Berman's house was the center of the earth, and he'd come from England to find it.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
People will come up to our house of that sort quite often. It wasn't a rarity. So that did happen, yes.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, that I wanted to mention, I just looked it up when we were talking about the Beatles album cover from Sgt. Pepper's. And again, kind of shows your father as this underground person, that even there, like 20 years after the album was recorded, they put out a 20th anniversary CD. And in the booklet that came with it, a lot of it had to do with making that image and working with the artist, Peter Blake. And they list all the personages. They had them numbered. And, you know, there's your father, Wallace Berman. And all of them also described their profession. And it didn't say artist, it said actor.
Yes, I know this.
You know?
I saw this.
And, you know, he was sort of always just out of the mainstream.
Yeah, like, who the hell is this guy? Who's this?
Well, maybe that's how he snuck in. They say, an actor? Sure, no problem.
Good actor, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Anyway, thanks for the book. It's a great read.
Would everybody that can turn their cameras on so we can give Tosh a send-off? Because you've been so nice hanging in there.
I have the same three people all this time. Are there more people out there? Oh my God,
Some
yes.
of them are, but they're hidden behind the wall. The wall.
Sherry, hi, Sherry. This is like romper room time. Hi, Sherry, I can see you.
That's right. No, touch on the screen. If you see a vase, touch the vase.
James up, I think he's there.
There we go.
Up, Juliet.
Nice to see you all.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Enjoy your dinner tonight or whatever.
Yeah, my potato.
Okay, I'm going to go now.
Bye-bye. See you all. Thank you, Megan.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks again.
Ciao.
Ciao.